Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
What first-round surprise will take place tonight? Will FFPC Joe's Ryan Santos and Dan Williamson be the ones to beat? And who will force the issue on tight ends in Pros versus Joe's number 3? Follow along with the live draft board tonight and listen to our live analysis as we call the live action from the 2017 FFPC Pros versus Joe's No More Half Measures Division number 3 to see who will win a 2018 FFPC main event. You are in store for a great show because we've got one for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made. Soon as the test to see if I got pulled.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzak and addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is indeed the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Tonight we have the third of 6 special episodes for you this late July time of year. It's the Pros versus Joe's No More Half Measures Division number 3 draft tonight, and we will be covering it for 2 full hours. Follow the live draft board at youtube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball as we have it streaming for you there. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there for us or for tonight's drafters. Connect with us on Twitter at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. You can post on our Facebook page, facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you want to give us a call tonight, it's 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVER. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. We'll get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails as much as we can throughout the proceedings tonight. I want to remind everybody to go to myffpc.com and sign up for the Football Guys Players Championship, the best ball formats we have going on, the 100% double-ups, dynasty drafts, and more at myffpc.com. If you wanted to get in on the FFPC main event and get your draft slot in more than a month before the main events go off, we extended that deadline for 24 hours, so you still have some more time tonight. Midnight Pacific time is the cutoff for that. Make sure your main event team is paid in full, and you'll know where you're drafting after next weekend. Tonight's lineup, as we get to Division 3 tonight, leading things off from Pro Football Focus is the Pro Pat Thorman, Barry Griffiths, FFPC Joe right behind him. From numberfire.com, at Late Round QB on Twitter, that is JJ Zekarisen. The Overhyped Sleeper, at Overhyped Sleeper, take out the final E in Sleeper, and you have Dan Williamson's Twitter name. He's drafting 4th tonight. From 444.com, Josh Moore, who is at 4for4_Josh on Twitter. FFPC Joe Trevor Ross right behind him, followed by Chris Liss from RotoWire, who is at Chris_Liss on Twitter. At FF Links, better known as Ryan Santos in the FFPC, he's actually drafting 8th tonight. At Fantasy ADHD, that is Josh Hornsby from RotoGrinders picking 9th. John Rozak, a former guest of this show, a man who has won a lot of money in the FFPC, will be paying attention attention to what he's doing tonight. He is drafting from the 10 spot. Jason Moore from fantasyfootballers.com at JasonFFL is the final pro tonight, drafting from the 11th spot. And the final Joe tonight, he said, just call me Sean Z. He emailed me, said, just call me Sean Z. You don't have to try to pronounce my last name. It's not the way I roll. I'm going to try to do it. Strakowski, I believe, is how it's pronounced. He gave me the phonetic spelling in his email. Sean Strakowski, drafting 12th tonight.
Nice.
So that is
love the Polish names, Balky.
Great. Yeah, it's absolutely. I got some Polish blood in me too. So I'm rooting for Poles everywhere, including the one to my left in the studio here tonight as we are covering this for the third night in a row, and we are
a little weary, Balky.
We're off and running. No, I'm good.
Right.
Listen, we got to do 3 more of these next week. So
I'm fine. This is great.
I will sleep when I'm dead. The draft as we're getting to, so it's almost the end of the first round. Let's go through this and see, just break down this for everybody, what happened. Yeah, we're doing this already. Pat Thorman from PFF takes David Johnson number 1. No surprise there. The consensus number 1, I would say so far. We did see Le'Veon Bell go there on Sunday night, but David Johnson goes here number 1 tonight. And then you have Le'Veon Bell going to Barry Griffiths at the 2 spot. Picking third tonight is J.J. Zacharisa. Now, he stays away from Ezekiel Elliott, and he goes with Antonio Brown with the Elliott suspension looming. Potential suspension. Maybe he doesn't even get suspended at all. Who knows? It's the NFL. But J.J. Zacharisa trying to limit his risk a little bit here, and he goes Antonio Brown, the number 1 wide receiver taken in FFPC drafts right now. And a bit of a surprise at 4 as we see Dan Williamson go with LaShawn McCoy over Ezekiel Elliott, Dave. So if you are picking 4th, and you want to get a running back, are you taking McCoy over Elliott here like Dan Williamson did?
I think I would stick with Elliott, actually. I like Shady McCoy, though. Don't get me wrong.
So do you think that there is a suspension for Elliott, or are you not concerned because you'll just fill in whatever, running backs you get to be your starter while Elliott misses his time?
I mean, can I say both? I am concerned, and I'm going to try and get someone to fill in. I mean,
So you can't be too concerned then.
I'm
suspended.
Somewhat concerned. This is a 16-week little tournament here thing, so it's not an 11-week main event type thing, so it's a little bit different.
28-round best ball, 1.5 per catch for tight ends in this format. 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, as well as a kicker, defense, and quarterback for anybody who is not initiated into the FFPC format. Ezekiel Elliott does go to Josh Moore at the 5 spot tonight, followed by a glut. Is it glut? The glut of receivers. A ton of receivers here. Odell Beckham, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, and then followed by Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, and Jordy Nelson. So bam, bam, bam go the receivers in the first round. Beckham to Trevor Ross, Julio Jones to Chris Liss, A.J. Green to Ryan Santos, Michael Thomas to Josh Hornsby, and then Mike Evans to John Rozak, Jordy Nelson to Jason Moore. Finishing off the first round is Melvin Gordon. Now, Dave, we haven't seen Michael Thomas in a whole lot of first rounds so far, but we see him in the first round tonight. We saw Jake Seeley take him in roughly the mid-second on Sunday night. Here he goes to Josh Hornsby at the 108. Do you like Michael Thomas as that selection
109,
there?
right?
109, excuse me, 109.
I like Mike Evans better. I mean, that's kind of the guy I'd go with. And I also do like Jordy Nelson a little bit better. Both of those 2 players have proven that they can handle being the number 1 receiver, that they can handle double coverage and still do well. Thomas hasn't really proven that quite yet. So to me, there's a little bit more uncertainty with Michael Thomas versus those 2 players. So that's why I would probably go on a little safer pick with Evans or Jordy.
You've talked about how you haven't been a huge fan of Julio Jones given his penchant for not, dominating in championship week of the FFPC.
Yeah, getting soft tissue injuries during the playoffs.
What's your opinion on A.J. Green this year? Do you like him better than Julio Jones? If you decided that you were going to take a receiver, let's say Beckham, Evans, Thomas, Nelson, they were all gone. Green and Julio are still out there. Are you taking Green over Julio?
I'd probably take Julio. I mean, the thing about Julio that's so irritating is how can he not score touchdowns? I mean, one of these years you think he's going to blow up for 12 touchdowns. It just doesn't make any sense that someone that big doesn't score touchdowns. It's so irritating, but I would still take Julio. A.J. Green had an injury last year, and he's just he's strong, but he's still a little bit of that lean body type. It makes me a little bit nervous too.
Yeah, and Michael Thomas, as Kevin Gromick in the live chat on YouTube pointing out, thought that Michael Thomas before Jordy Nelson and Mike Evans. That was a little bit interesting. And I think that's interesting, too. Like, you think about all the targets that Mike Evans got last year, whatever it was, 170-something.
They're talking about them dropping a bit.
Yes, that's true, and maybe Michael Thomas's go up, but that is still pretty compelling to see Thomas goes. One other thing I want to bring up is with
another. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
that's all right.
With an ascending quarterback still, versus an arguably slightly descending Drew Brees. I mean, Brees probably isn't going to be getting any better. He's great.
I can't imagine he would.
But, I think Evans might benefit a little bit there as well.
What do you make of, are you surprised that no tight ends went in the first? I mean, we saw 2 tight ends go in the first round the last 2 drafts. Tonight, no tight ends in the first round.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
Is this going to be, now I think this is something that we're going to have to pay attention to, one of the many storylines we'll be paying attention to as we move throughout this draft, to see maybe this is a case where the tight ends don't go as high as they did the last couple of nights.
It's possible. It depends upon the pros. I mean, the Joes are going to know what's up.
Right.
And what's interesting is that when you look at what happens in the second round, I mean, are we skipping ahead to talk about the tight ends just a little bit?
Yeah, you can. That's fine. You can do whatever you want, Dave.
Thanks. Well, Rozak gets value with Mike Evans at 10. And then these guys are not going to let Gronk and Travis Kelce drop that far. So then Rozak, a Joe, takes Gronk at the 10, coming back around. And then Ryan Santos, the guy who's played in a ton of leagues, grabs Kelce coming back around after that. They're not going to let those tight ends drop that far.
Yeah, and you have Dan Williamson and John Rozak and Ryan Santos, all who have done a ton of drafts already this season.
Right.
We've had Ryan Santos and John Rozak on this show, probably both of them within the last month and a half. And, I mean, they talked about this. This is the kind of thing that the pros have to be wary of, that you have 3 guys, at minimum 3 guys in this format who have done a ton of 2017 drafts with this scoring system, with this lineup setting.
It is a bit of a handicap for the pros.
It's strategically placed, throughout this draft. You have Williamson at 4, Santos at 8, and Rozak at 10. So they're all over the place. And one of the things, actually, I was for a preview for the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown podcast that is coming out this coming Thursday. Zach Giroux and Shane Gray, Boobs Love 'em, the Boobs Love 'em franchise. They're actually going to be on, and I was talking with them
of Elevator fame
because they are going to be drafting in the Pros vs. Joes on July 30th as a Joe, and he said, as soon as I saw, this is Zach Giroux speaking, he said, as soon as I saw who was in my draft, I'm going to these pros websites, I'm checking out their Twitter feeds, what they're saying, I'm seeing what their rankings say, at least for the first few rounds, so I kind of know who's going to be available for me. The pros don't have that advantage. They can't go to these Joe's websites and
right.
know who these guys like, how they have them ranked, what they've been doing so far. So it is kind of an uphill battle for the pros, and you would think that, with them being so immersed in fantasy football in general, that kind of levels it up. Not always the case.
Well, especially, like a guy like Ryan Santos, he's done so many drafts. He will instinctively look at a player and know, like, oh, that guy shouldn't be there. There's no way he should be there, so I'll just take him. He doesn't have to look at ADP. He just knows.
Right, exactly. Actually, Ryan Santos, who is actually doing this draft from like a campground somewhere, he actually emailed me and said that he would be doing it there.
That's funny.
He's like, yeah, I'll try to call in. I said, dude, just stay connected to the draft room. That's all I care about.
The call would be dreadful.
Yeah, exactly. Devontae Freeman at the 201 tonight to Sean Strakowski. God, maybe I should just call him Sean Z.
Shawnee Z, baby.
Sean
that
Z
sounds cooler.
Starts running back, Melvin Gordon, Devontae Freeman. DeMarco Murray to Jason Moore from the Fantasy Footballers at the 202. First tight end is off the board, and that is Rob Gronkowski at the 203 to John Rozak, who you already discussed. Jay Ajayi right after that to Josh Hornsby. Travis Kelce at the 205, the second tight end off the board. He goes to at FF Links, that is Ryan Santos. Jordan Howard falls, I guess you could say falls, to the 206 tonight, and that is right before T.Y. Hilton goes off the board to Trevor Ross, FFPC Joe. The third, yes, I said third tight end of round number 2 goes to Josh Moore at the 208, followed by Doug Baldwin to Dan Williamson, and then Amari Cooper to go with Antonio Brown for J.J. Zachariason. And I can't even believe it, but 4 tight ends. That's right, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 tight ends go in the second round.
None went in the first
tonight. Jordan Reed, you're ruining
it.
Yes, you're ruining the image.
This is amazing, Balky.
Yeah.
4, wow.
4 tight ends in the second round. Jordan Reed to Barry Griffiths, and completing the second round is Lamar Miller going to Pat Thorman from Pro Football.
Barry's played a ton of main events over the years, and he's a really good player as well. Just don't underrate Barry's drafts.
At Fantasy ADHD on Twitter, just threw me under the bus for sandwiching him between Rozak and Santos. I had nothing to do with this. I have this is
that's
Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani. Yeah, he puts together the draft order. You blame him. Don't blame me.
You must have made him mad on some tweet you sent out or something. You have a lot of tweets you put out there. Maybe
I do. I don't tweet that much.
Not you, of course. Josh, ADHD.
Oh yeah.
He's got tons of tweets going on.
Yeah. So that is the second round, and I guess there's not a huge. I mean, other than the fact that we see 4 tight ends, I'm not really seeing any shockers here. I mean, Doug Baldwin at the 209. I feel like that's sort of where he's going right now. It's we touched on this
it's
on a
tad early for the other compared to the other two drafts.
302 is where he's normally going, so I guess it is a little early. But again, you're not getting him.
Not too bad.
You're probably not getting him back if you don't take him there. That was Dan Williamson. Who knows where these guys are going, by the way.
By the way, last year T.Y. Hill was the player that was always going at the turn, and this year it's Dez. Dez is the guy that everyone at the
really?
turn there has been taking. Not maybe in your drafts, but in these drafts, all 3 of these drafts, Dez has gone at the 212 or 31.
That is interesting. And actually his ADP and FFPC best balls right now, 210. So very, very close to he's apparently slipping a little bit in the pros versus Joe's formats. So Doug Baldwin is a little bit early. I was going to ask you, if you were drafting in a draft experts format, which you actually will be drafting in shortly in Kentucky.
Actually, I'm going to be drafting in the Taylor Young Memorial League. The draft order just came out. I have the 8th pick.
The 8th pick, interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So if the board fell this way and Ryan Santos had the 8th pick tonight, who would you have taken there? If the top 4 backs were off the board, Brown, Beckham, Jones are no longer available, who would you be looking at 8? Would you take Gronk?
Probably either Gronk, AJ Green, or Evans. And I'd have to just I haven't really spent too much
time. One of those 3.
But I would take a serious look at Gronk.
So in the Taylor Young Memorial League, that is an FFPC format. I'm curious as
the only chance I get to play.
Right, exactly. I'm curious as to when you are prepping for this draft, are you?
I don't prep for a Memorial League draft where
okay, well, whatever. You still want to look good.
Yeah,
the Dizzle's got to look good.
It's like Family Feud. You win there and win $20,000 or whatever, and it all goes to March of Dimes or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that you don't care. You want to win the $20,000.
Well, I mean,
but someone's going to win this league, whether it's me or somebody else.
You're the co-host of one of the most wildly successful podcasts out there. Which, by the way, our show.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Did you see HBO's statement of after Game of Thrones Sunday?
No, I didn't. This should be really funny.
Said that not funny. I was shocked, but apparently they said that they made an egregious error trying to go head to head with the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hours broadcast of the Pros versus Joes. Mm-hmm. Worst ratings ever, which I guess I was not at all surprised at. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but I knew it was going to be bad. People love the Pros versus Joes enough to DVR Game of Thrones, come back and watch it later. Did you watch Game of Thrones when it was live? No. Did I watch Game of Thrones
when it
was live? And you and I are...
I tried to, but I had to keep talking.
Well, okay. See, again, you're ruining the whole aspect of this. Okay, so let's move on to the third round here and talk about what's going on here with the backs and receivers coming off the board. Dez Bryant is Pat Foreman's number 1 receiver, as Dave alluded to earlier at the 301. Barry Griffiths takes DeAndre Hopkins, the guy who surprisingly went at the 110 last night by Izzy Elkafis from Dynasty Trade Calculator. But Izzy did say it was a mistake pick. I still was taking him when it came back to him in the 203, which is still kind of surprising that he would go that high. But listen, it's all about getting your guys, and he did, and so did Barry Griffiths getting DeAndre Hopkins tonight at the 302. Sammy Watkins at the 303 as J.J. Zachariason starts off receiver. He of Number Fire fame, followed by Isaiah Crowell to Dan Williamson. And then Spencer Ware. Let's talk about this pick, Dave. At the 305 tonight, this is Josh Moore from 4for4.com taking Spencer Ware at the 305. He normally has an ADP in this format of the 510. So you're looking at he more than likely could have got him in the 4th round. Might even really get him in the 5th round. But Josh Moore takes Spencer Ware there. A guy who, is probably the starter in Kansas City, but you have Kareem Hunt there. It seems to me that there's going to be significant work for both those backs. So Josh Moore from 4for4 taking Spencer Ware there. I'm totally caught off guard by that.
Yeah, I am as well. I mean, it's definitely early. I think that he kind of made a mistake there. He should have probably waited until the 4th round. If he really wanted him, wait till the 4th.
But you don't know what all the pros are thinking in this draft, too. What?
I mean, that's accurate, but I mean, there's probably a 95% chance he's getting him in the 4th round, given the ADP. I mean, right. You can, be honest.
I mean, I don't know about the percentage chance, but maybe you could be right.
You have to. I mean, that's what you kind of would do is you'd be like, well, if I like this guy, what are the odds I'm getting him in the 4th round? Here, I would have said like 95%.
That is the second running back off the board for Josh Moore as he couples Spencer Ware with Ezekiel Elliott. Leonard Fournette is the number 1 running back for Trevor Ross at the 306, followed by Brandon Cooks to Chris Liss. Todd Gurley is the number 1 running back drafted by Ryan Santos as Ryan starts off receiver, tight end, running back. A rainbow start, I believe, is what they call that in the industry. Jimmy Graham right after that is the 5th tight end off the board to Josh Hornsby, followed by Joe Mixon, the running back for Cincinnati. He is John Rozek's number 1 running back in the 3rd round here. And completing the 3rd round, Demaryius Thomas at the 311 and Golden Tate at the 312. So you look at this round, Dave, and there were some surprises. We already talked about Spencer Ware. I'm a little surprised Brandon Cooks slipped as far as he did. And, normally we don't see him going in the mid-3rd round. Chris Liss snatches him up to go with Julio Jones and Jordan Howard. You could make the case that there is he may have the most targets on his team right now, fantasy targets, with those 3 players than anybody else in the draft. Cooks, Julio, and Howard. I'm not saying he does. I'm saying you can make the case that he might.
I have to argue for Zach Eason.
Oh, Zach Eason started off with 3 straight receivers. You're totally right. I am wrong. The only time I will ever say that on this program, but not the only time I will be wrong on this program. Demaryius Thomas at the 311. I actually like that pick. I feel like he continues to be undervalued by fantasy players this year. This is a guy that I think is being penalized unfairly for the quarterback situation there, which, I mean, the quarterback situation was not great last year in Denver. And Demaryius Thomas, actually, he had a significant amount of drops last year. If he can get those corrected, he could end up with a massive season, no matter the quarterback there. And I feel like even if it's Lynch at quarterback, that actually might make his numbers go up.
I don't know if it will be Lynch, but yeah, Demaryius Thomas, he's just a consummate pro. And remember, there was some stat you brought up a number of weeks ago, and you didn't name the player, but you talked about the consistency of this player, and it was Demaryius Thomas. Mm-hmm. He's had so many consecutive, 90-plus catch seasons with over X number of yards. He just puts up numbers. He produces. He gets wide open. I really like Jason Moore's, Jordy Nelson, DeMarco Murray, Demaryius Thomas, and then Keenan Allen. I think, the recent news on Keenan Allen is that he's looking 100%, looking great.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to the phone lines here and go to the 952 and talk with one of the drafters tonight. You are on the air with Balky and Dave. Who is this?
It's Dan Williamson, Overhyped Sleeper.
At Overhyped Sleeper on Twitter, Dan Williamson drafting.
We haven't ripped on his draft yet, so that's good. Out
of the 4 spot tonight. I think the first thing we want to ask you, Dan, you had the opportunity to take Ezekiel Elliott at the at the 4. You go with LaShawn McCoy instead. Was it just the potential suspension that made you that it was a slam dunk to go with McCoy over Elliott there?
Well, it certainly made the decision easier. I mean, I love McCoy. I think he's a great player. He's made a lot of money for me in the past, so he's one of my go-to guys. And with the possible suspension for Elliott, I just don't see the need to mess with it.
And obviously, you wanted to. Was it important to start off this draft with a foundation running back as opposed to like Beckham or Jones or Evans or any of those other receivers?
Yeah, that kind of fits the strategy I'm putting together right now. So, I really wanted to start off and make sure I had one good running back because that just gives me the freedom to kind of go any way I want to go later on, and I can follow the draft a little bit.
Dan, you are on the clock right now. You start off with McCoy, Baldwin, and Crowell. Who are you thinking here in the 4th round?
We got to go Fitzgerald right here. There's no question.
Yeah, Fitz, baby.
Okay, so you're taking Larry Fitzgerald in the 4th round as your number 2 receiver. It makes sense there. I'm curious as to what you foresee for Isaiah Crowell this year. What kind of numbers does he put up? Is he going to be a top 10, maybe even a top 7 back this year? Is it the improved offensive line in Cleveland? What attracted you to make Crowell your choice at the 304?
I mean, honestly, I don't know if he's going to be, an RB1 for sure, but I do think he'll be at least a high-end RB2. Hugh Jackson has just a great history with the running game. I mean, you go back and you look at what he was doing with Oakland. I mean, Michael Bush and guys like that. I mean, he was taking guys that, just really were kind of, didn't have a ton of talent, and he was doing great things with them. You got that great offensive line, Hugh has said he wants to run the ball. I mean, everything just kind of lines up for Kroll.
Talking with Dan Williamson, who you can follow on Twitter at @overhypedsleeper. Final E in sleeper is missing. Dan, you have done a lot of these DEs thus far, and I'm just curious as to how this one is playing out based on what you thought was going to happen or based on what you've seen so far this year.
There's been a couple surprising picks, but overall I think it's playing out, pretty close to form. So, no complaints. The guys I want have been there for the most part. I did want to get Olsen in the second, but, you don't get everything you want.
Yeah, definitely not, especially in this, with 6 pros, 6 Joes. You are on the clock right now here, Dan, once again in the 5th round. You have 2 backs, 2 receivers. Who is going to be your pick here at the 504?
Well, I think I just got to go ahead and go with Tom Terrific.
Tom Terrific. So Tom Brady goes here. Are you at all concerned because we already have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tight ends off the board? Are you concerned that you might get shut out here, given that it's going to be a significant amount of picks before you get to pick again?
Not at all. I've been doing these drafts for a lot of years. I am totally comfortable with dumpster diving at tight end. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I like that term.
So, Dan, let's talk about that for a second. With these best ball formats, when you have done them in the past, do you find yourself, because I know you said you wanted Olsen tonight, but have you found yourself in the past, if you don't get one of those top elite ones, you're fine with getting 3 or 4 of them in the mid rounds and just sort of cobbling it together there, since you don't have to worry about which one to start?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I didn't really expect Brady to be there on this pick. I was kind of planning on going a different way, but that, it still might work out for my 5th pick that I might get that guy because I was going to be reaching on this one. So we'll see if I can stick to my strategy that I've loosely lined out or not.
When I look at your team, it looks like you're not really taking risks on the rookies and unknown quantities. You have Shady McCoy, Baldwin, Crowell, Fitzgerald, Brady, consistent veteran performers. Is that kind of something you consistently try and do and avoid the overhyped sleepers, as it were?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm not above taking some risks on rookies and things like that. I mean, you got to risk it if you want the biscuit a little bit. But on the other hand, in the early rounds, I think safety is where the action is at. I mean, you just want targets, touches. You just want as many safe fantasy points as you can get, and then later on in the you start getting into 6, 7, 8, 10 rounds. That's where you really want to start laying it on the line and taking some chances.
Well, we will be paying attention to see what you do in those rounds, as we'll be covering those rounds and many more here as we go on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Dan Williamson, thanks so much for calling in. Good luck not only the rest of the way in this draft, but in all your drafts, and we will see you in Vegas in September, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Dan Williamson at @overhypedsleeper on Twitter. That's spelled correctly, except for the last E. You got to take that out.
I've noted you've said that a few times.
Well, I just want to point it out. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you need to make sure that you are taking out that last E. So good stuff from him. I think the important takeaways from that is, people always talk about, including me, this is a winner-take-all league. You only get a first-place prize. Second place gets nothing. Third place gets nothing. So you want to shoot for the moon. So a lot of people will go upside, upside, upside. Well, sometimes the upside, as Dan pointed out, is represented by the safer guys in the first rounds, guys that have a proven track record of consistency. And sometimes that's the way that you end up building that core. And then, as Dan pointed out, if you hit on some of these guys in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, then you can really make your money or make the 2018 FFPC main event, as it were.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's no risk, and there's a lot less risk in those later picks. So if you miss on them, who cares?
Right, exactly. Let's move on and talk about, we left off at Golden Tate at the 312. I felt that was kind of interesting. That was a little bit earlier than we normally see Golden Tate going.
Well, speaking of Tate, actually, I saw, it might have even been Josh at ADHD. Somebody had posted an in and out of split with Tate, and it was when Theo Riddick and Ebron were both healthy and playing at the same time as Tate, and Tate's numbers were significantly worse
Mm-hmm.
when they were both playing. So if you assume that those two are going to be healthy, you cannot quite assume the higher production out of Tate.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Devontae Adams is his pick right after that. And the other thing, you weren't on the show on Friday, but one of the emails that we got in was a guy who didn't know which one to go with in one of his slow drafts, an FFPC slow draft. He was torn between Golden Tate and Devontae Adams. Here you have Sean Z going with both Tate and Adams here at the 312 and the 401. Keenan Allen falls all the way to the 402 to Jason Moore from the Fantasy Footballers, which I believe you can actually hear their show on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network, along with ours.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's
Good.
very cool.
So what do
we have a colleague on the show.
Yeah, is that
tonight.
what we call it? Is that what I was going to ask you? What do you call it?
I don't know what we call it. Because
a potty collie?
I definitely know you don't call him that. I don't know what you would call him. But so he gets Keenan Allen there. I thought
We should do some of those cross promotional segments where you
or start a feud with him.
Yeah, one of the two things.
Yeah.
Or start with the cross promotional segments and then say
That turns into a feud.
yeah, that they're pissing us off because they're not doing enough of them, or they're ones that are like not effusive enough about how great we are, and then we start giving crappy ones to them.
Right.
All right.
I think
Let's get a call together. Have Farrell call them.
Farrell?
Farrell's our agent.
Yeah,
So have Farrell
okay.
call their people, and we'll get this hooked up.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
will be like, I've been watching the Defiant ones. This will be like the East Coast West Coast feud.
I wonder where they're located. I don't even know where
Well,
fantasy football
We're
is.
the Midwest feuders.
We
We have to shoot those bastards.
We're the North Coast. You have Keenan Allen at the 402 to Jason Moore, as I alluded to earlier. What I wanted to say about him is there's been a lot of positive stuff coming out of him, or coming out of Chargers camp. Chargers beat reporters saying that he's looking very athletic, very in and out of his cuts. He's getting out of.
That's because Mike Williams is looking so terrible.
Maybe that's what it is.
Put
They're
some
comparing.
positive spin on this.
But I mean, maybe Keenan Allen just looks like a demigod next to Mike Williams. That could be it.
Mike Williams standing on the sideline.
Yeah.
With a cardigan.
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey goes to John Rozek. So Rozek goes back-to-back rookie running backs with Mixon and McCaffrey here in the third and fourth round. The first team to double up on tight ends has done so. That is at Fantasy ADHD, Josh Hornsby from Roto Grinders. He grabs Tyler Eifert to go with Jimmy Graham. Graham in the third, Eifert in the fourth. Aaron Rodgers is the first quarterback off the board. No surprise there, and he goes to Ryan Santos, who, by the way, I believe Ryan, when he was on the show on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, said that he had been getting Aaron Rodgers in a few more drafts this year than he was expecting, and so Rodgers goes to him in this format as well.
The rainbow going.
Yep. Terrell Pryor is the third receiver selected by Chris Liss here to go with Brandon Cooks and Julio Jones in the fourth round. Carlos Hyde goes to Trevor Ross. So Carlos Hyde, the news that came out from him or about him that he could be a surprise cut, a guy that maybe even looks more attractive to another team on the East Coast right now that could trade for him. You look at Carlos Hyde, and there's some question marks there, but not enough for Trevor Ross to take a different running back. Could have had Ty Montgomery, Tevin Coleman, Dalvin Cook, Mark Ingram, Marshawn Lynch, any of those guys. He goes with Carlos Hyde there to go with Leonard Fournette. Michael Crabtree, once again in the fourth round, he goes to Josh Moore here, and then Larry Fitzgerald, as we heard from Dan Williamson, going right after that. A pick that I really like, Ty Montgomery at the 410 to J.J. Zachariason. Great job.
This team is shaping up interesting.
It is very interesting, and when you start off with three straight receivers, you can get Ty Montgomery as your number one running back. I think you're doing it right, Dave.
Yeah, spoiling it with Tyreek Hill as his next pick. I really love the way his team looks after 5 rounds.
Yeah, and J.J. Zachariason is drafted in this Pros versus Joes format before, so he does know how these things go. I really like his team thus far.
You know, J.J. and I are old pals. We met at the FSTA, and we had a nice long conversation. I was pretty drunk, and I asked him all about his background, his life, and how he got into this and stuff. And I don't remember any of it. Yeah. Because I was drunk. I have no idea where he went to college, what he did, any of the whole 9 yards. But I do remember he's a nice guy.
Yeah, he is a nice guy, for sure. He's actually been on this program before.
Yeah, I might have told the same story the last time he was on.
Yeah, it could be.
See, there you go. This is the problem I have, Bucky.
Allen Robinson at the 411.
Like one of those old people who tells the same war stories over and over and over.
Yeah, and you've been doing it since your youth.
Well, luckily we lose listeners pretty often, so we won't probably have had people who have heard both shows.
And so basically, once you've heard one Gerzak joke or one Gerzak story, that's the only time you'll ever hear it.
You tell bad jokes.
I first of all, I've never told a bad joke in my life. Second of all, I tell jokes and stories. You do the same. And once you hear it once, apparently it's enough for them to turn off the program and find something else.
You know, I'm going to tell the Zach Reason joke again. The story. I'm going to tell it on Friday, too, on the show, the radio show.
Perfect. Stephon Diggs completing the 4th round here as the number 2 receiver to Pat Thorman from Pro Football Focus. So through 4 rounds, we have only 1 quarterback off the board, only 6 tight ends, everybody gobbling up those green and yellows. Hey, which, by the way, you know that you don't like it when I talk about a player on the show and I'm like, num, 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 right? You always hate that. It's one of the things like oh, my goodness, Ty Montgomery in the 5th round. Yum, num, 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 num. Okay?
It is like fingernails on the chalkboard. It's very, very annoying.
So, Howard, I can't remember who we were talking about, but when I was on Fantasy Alarm
maybe?
last week.
It is.
Well, whatever.
Gross.
Fantasy Alarm last week with Howard Bender, we were talking about a player, and I can't remember who it was. And he did that to me. He
you stole my
nom me, but I stole it from somebody else. I mean, it's not my shtick. I would never claim ownership of that, but he did it to me.
You don't do any original?
I totally wish that maybe Howard Bender doesn't. You ever think of that? Maybe he got it from me. So the thing is, like, you rip on me for it. This is part of popular podcast culture now, to nom your picks.
That's just so terrible.
On air. It worked out.
Oh, man.
Eric Ebron leading things off here in the 5th round of Pat Thorman as the 7th tight end off the board, followed by Alshon Jeffrey to Barry Griffiths. Tyreek Hill is the 4th receiver drafted by J.J. Zachariason, followed by Tom Brady, who you heard Dan Williamson pick live on the air tonight. The overhyped sleeper takes Brady. Tevin Coleman off the board at the 505 as the 3rd running back to Josh Moore. Julian Edelman to Trevor Ross after that, followed by Dalvin Cook. Hey, Dave, do you like Dalvin Cook this year?
He's okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you that opportunity to say that you like him because you usually, and when we do our little round recaps, it seems like you always bring up like, Bulky, let me tell you, a pick I really like in this round, Dalvin Cook. Like, everybody's thinking, like, okay, he had, like, his combine was terrible or whatever. He had some fumbling issues in college. But, like, I really think that was a really good pick there in the 5th round.
You know, if you can do me,
I can't. That was
then
terrible.
Why do I even need to be here? Why don't you just talk for the whole 2 hours and pretend that you're me? I can sit here and watch Aliens on Stars or whatever the hell stupid channel this is, and, you know, see what Sigourney Weaver's up to. People don't realize this, but I'm actually doing both voices right now. Dave hasn't been on the show for years. Yeah, it's a chat bot that I have, a Dave Gerzak chat bot that I'm using. That's pretty good. Jarvis Landry right after Dalvin Cook is the number 2 receiver to Ryan Santos. Mark Ingram to Josh Hornsby, followed by Marshawn Lynch falling all the way down to the 5'10 to John Rozak. Do you think that Lynch falling to this spot in the draft is a product of this? Yes. The news story that just came out. Now, what's another name for a news story? Would you call it a blurb, perhaps? I would never use that term. Okay. So anyway, so you think that's what it was? Lynch falling to the 5'10 was a total product of maybe he's not going to hit 200 carries this year. Maybe he's going to be, saved for a playoff run during the season. We'll see more Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington. That could be the case. And I think I'm with you here on this one because if you look at Marshawn Lynch, his ADP is normally the 403 over the last 2 weeks in FFPC best ball formats, and he falls almost, more than a full round, almost a round and a half, almost 2 rounds really, to Rozak there. And he is Rozak's third straight running back as well. Kyle Rudolph, we saw him go in the 4th round last night. He falls to the 5'11 tonight, followed by Willie Snead as the number 3 receiver by Sean Z. I've given up. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. And he's probably like, thank God Balky's not screwing this up again. He screws up so much stuff on this show. It's a good thing that this is one less thing he has to worry about. How do you pronounce it correctly again? Strakowski. Strakowski. So, do you think anyone's ever said it correctly the first time? Never. Maybe somebody in his family. No, I'm not. He told me the ZD is an ST sound. Okay, ZD is an ST. Okay. Yeah, Strakowski. Cool. So there you go. You come for the fantasy analysis, come for the Polish. I'm just saying, like, linguistics. You know, if you're a professor of linguistics, maybe you got it right. You know what I mean? If Sean Z is in there taking a linguistics class, maybe he got it right. That professor, he or she got it right. Other than that, no one's getting it. Maybe if he goes on a vacation to Eastern Europe and he introduces himself, those people would get the pronunciation right away. I mean, that's probably like Smith over there. Yeah, but Polish language is a lot different than the English with all the 26 letters. think Polak's got a bunch of different stuff
All right,
going on.
you don't need to use racist slurs.
I'm Polish. I
You
can say
can't-
Polak.
That's fine, but like.
I'm a self-loathing Polak.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on past this.
I've been watching a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm lately.
Yeah. But at least people's ears probably just perked up. Like, wait, what are they talking
they
about?
woke
now?
up. They woke up for the show now.
Jamison Crowder to lead things off here in the 6th round to Sean Z. He is his 4th receiver. So Sean has 2 running backs, 4 receivers right now, followed by Mike Gillisley at the 602 to fantasyfootballers.com's Jason Moore. Zach Ertz, the 2nd tight end drafted by John Rozek. A little surprised that Rozek only has 1 receiver through 6 rounds, Dave.
Not really. Rozek always does all sorts of wacky crap like this. This is what he does.
He does do wacky crap, but it usually pays off for him, so I don't know how crappy it is. But it is wacky.
I didn't say it was crappy. I said it was wacky crap.
Yeah, wacky crap. Not crappy whack.
Exactly.
Crappy whack
There is
doesn't
difference.
pay off.
It's crappy whack is different.
Martavis Bryant right after that is the number 2 receiver to Josh ADHD. Emmanuel Sanders right after that is the 3rd receiver to Ryan Santos, followed by go ahead.
I was going to mention you today. I saw Martavis Bryant tweet. Someone was saying they can't wait to see which of the 3 games this year that Bryant has a good game. That they're excited to see that. I liked it. I was going to retweet it and put your name right in there, but I decided.
This is Bryant tweeting this?
No, it was someone else. It was a fantasy player
Just
talking
tweeting.
about how Bryant's going to
have 3
have
good
three good games.
and that's it.
Yeah.
But now in those, to be fair, he's probably going to have 15 touchdowns combined in those 3 games, which I'm good with.
Possibly.
Emmanuel Sanders right after that, followed by Hunter Henry is the number 1 tight end by Chris Liss. Andrew Luck is the 3rd quarterback off the board and the number 1 quarterback for Trevor Ross. Pierre Garçon, the 2nd receiver drafted by Josh
moving
Moore.
up.
Yeah,
He's flying up, Balky.
Now remember, Josh Moore is the same guy who drafted Spencer Ware in the 3rd round. Pierre Garçon,
he's trusting his rankings.
He normally goes at the 802. So to have Pierre Garçon go at the the 608 is not. It's not that huge of a deal. It's interesting that he has his top 2 receivers as Crabtree and Garçon though. Danny Woodhead goes to Dan Williamson.
Your
here.
boy.
Yep, I like him. Followed by
noteworthy and newsworthy.
This is really honestly, you could make the case that 4 straight bulky boys went here with Garçon, Woodhead, Eddie Lacy, and C.J. Anderson.
You're right.
Right in a row, because Lacy goes to J.J. Zacharyson once again as his 2nd running back. C.J. Anderson, the 2nd running back to Barry Griffiths. And Dante Moncrief, the number 3 receiver for Pat Thorman here, as we have completed 6 rounds of action here. In the Pros versus Joes number 3, we do 6 of these. Each of these drafts will feature 1 winner getting a 2018 FFPC main event team for next year. That's a $1,750 value. The overall title in this competition has been won by an FFPC Joe 6 out of the 8 years we've been doing it. Blake Pyle, of course, the 2015 Football Guys Players Championship winner, $250,000. He wins the Pros versus Joes overall competition last year.
Wow.
And then the 2 pros that have won it the 2 years before Blake Pyle. Jake Seeley in 2015. And then in 2014, Tim McCullough from RotoExperts.com, who we will actually get to watch draft next week. I believe he is drafting a week from tonight in this competition as well. And we'll bring them all to you on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. For sure, it's always something fun that we do every year, and we're so glad you like listening. Delaney Walker leading off the 7th round to Pat Thorman. This is a mini tight end run here. Martellus Bennett at the 702. Martellus Bennett. Dave, what's your opinion on Green Bay Packers and throwing to their tight ends? You think they do it quite a bit?
It's an insanely high number of targets towards those Packer tight ends.
Yeah.
Nope, it's actually not. Alex sent me some texts last night. They were actually somewhat incredible.
Alex Kaganowski, co-founder of the FFPC, with you.
Correct. He was saying that there were so few. It was like Finley at like 60 or 70. But you looked it up, but still.
The numbers he was citing were not targets. No, they were correct. But he was saying they were targets. They were receptions.
Okay, so but targets didn't get really north of 90, really.
One year they did. Another year he had 87.
And that was for the lead tight end, not all tight ends on the team, right?
That was just Jermichael Finley we were talking about, strictly Finley, which I think you and I would agree that he's been the best tight end.
He's probably the most similar to Bennett. I mean, Bennett's a good player, but he is 30 or whatever he is.
Yeah, he's not a spring chicken, as they say. He's a fall rooster at this point. Something like that. So Martellus Bennett goes at the 7:02 tonight. Jack Doyle follows that at the 7:03. 3 straight tight ends to lead off the 7th round. Amir Abdullah to Dan Williamson is his number 4 running back. Derrick Henry, the number 4 running back, to Josh Moore from 4for4.com. Devontae Parker is the number 4 receiver drafted by Trevor Ross here in the 7th round, followed by Paul Perkins. This is an interesting guy, too, especially when you look at Chris Liss's team. He's got Jordan Howard, Dalvin Cook, and now Paul Perkins. A lot of youth at running back, a lot of unproven guys at running back outside of Jordan Howard, but very high ceiling for all 3 of those players given the roles that they should inherit in their teams this year, or the one that Jordan Howard already has essentially. Bilal Powell to Ryan Santos as his number 2 running back here. Dave, as you look at Ryan Santos' team, a guy who's done a ton of FFPC best balls, only with 2 running backs through 7 rounds. Are you at all surprised that a guy who has had so much experience doing this would stay away, not stay away, but not load up on that position when seemingly that's what a lot of people like to do in this format, is get the running backs early, fill in the receivers later?
Well, considering that he committed, this is not an insult, he kind of committed what he would call a classic faux pas of drafting a tight end and a quarterback early, but then he was very astute. He was smart and did not then hit running backs. He stuck with wide receivers. So you got A.J. Green, Kelsey, Gurley, Rodgers, then went Landry, Sanders, and got a great pick with Bilal Powell. So I think his team is really in nice shape. It's different than what I'm used to seeing, but he's got an elite tight end, an elite quarterback, elite number 1 wide receiver, and then he's still, and Gurley, if Gurley is a
Gurley in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this team, it could be really dangerous because of the way he's formatted it, and that's because he let running back 2 go. And I think that was a really smart move in his case. He could even let it go a little bit further if he wants to get more receivers here.
4th quarterback off the board tonight is Drew Brees, and it goes to Josh ADHD from Roto Grinders. Randall Cobb goes to John Rozek, a noted Packer fan. Rozek takes Randall Cobb at the 7:10 tonight as his second receiver.
I just envision Rozek just like, oh, Cobb, eh? And he just like, kind of shrugs his shoulders and smiles.
I think John Rozek does that before every one of his picks.
Or after.
So it's a very chill drafter. Yes. Kelvin Benjamin, the 4th receiver taken by Jason Moore from Fantasy Footballers, and Sean Z takes Brandon Marshall as his number 5 receiver. That will do it for the 7th round. Let's go back to the phone lines here and go to the 281. You are on the air with Dave and Balky on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Who is this?
This is a surprise guest. It's Josh ADHD.
Josh ADHD, who you follow on Twitter, at Fantasy ADHD.
Have you taken your Ritalin tonight?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I doubled up.
Well, perfect. Then this is no wonder your draft is falling into place here. Okay, so Josh, first question for you. You're the first guy who takes 2 tight ends in this format. What were your thoughts coming in on the possibility of you doing this, and how much was it part of your strategy to get 2 elite tight ends early?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to have a chance at Gronkowski pretty much because I wanted to take him in the 2nd round, and I knew he would go quick before I could make that pick. So, as expected, Rozek took it, right before I was ready to take him. And then, obviously Kelsey, Olsen, Reed followed right after that in the 2nd round. And so my fallback plan there was to go Jimmy Graham, Tyler Eifert back-to-back if I could, and ended up that's what I did. Just because I really like those guys as high upside tight ends this year. I think they have a lot of receptions in their future this year. And I also have super high tight end upside, in my opinion, in their offenses. They're both going to be in pretty elite passing offenses. One efficient, the other is going to be more volume-based. And I think they could both threaten to be probably tight end 2, tight end 3 this season, maybe stacked up back-to-back. So that's why I was targeting those guys, kind of, let's say, tier 2 tight ends, but I want to get those guys back-to-back. And looks like I'm up here now at my 8th round picks. I'm going to focus for a second and see if I can come up with some wizardry really quickly.
Hey, listen.
Yes, we'll just talk amongst each other.
Come up with some wizardry. If you need, sound it out, like Wheel of Fortune, where you're trying to figure out the last one. Think out loud on this one because we always appreciate that.
Quiche.
This is great. We're inside the mind of at Fantasy ADHD.
Oh, yeah, and it's a bad place to be right now. All right, here we go.
Josh,
we're going to YOLO. We are working the hardcore New Orleans Saints stack at this point.
No, he's off the
So
board.
I've just taken Adrian Peterson to stack with Mark
Peterson.
Ingram and Michael Thomas and Drew Brees.
Look at that, stacking 4 of those.
You know what's interesting, Josh, and I'm going to harken back to, I don't know how many years ago it was, Dave, but 3 or 4 years ago, Jules McLean was in this draft, and she actually ended up doing not only a stack of all players from one team, but it was the Saints. She stacked up on a ton of Saints, and she actually ended up doing very, very well in this format because obviously the Saints had a big season. So you get Peterson there, Josh. You already have Ingram. Let's talk about the first Saint you drafted, Michael Thomas. You had the opportunity to take Mike Evans, who, again, had a slightly higher ADP. We're picking at nits a little bit here with that. But what made you want to take Thomas over Evans in this format?
Yeah, and I knew at the 9th pick I was going to have a real decision to make, and I knew no matter what I did that I would be questioning what I was going to do because I feel like at this point, as soon as A.J. Green goes off the board, you're kind of in purgatory. Whether you want to reach a little bit on Gronkowski here, which I certainly thought about doing, decided to back off of that, hoping he would fall to me at 204. So I ended up going with Thomas here because you guys mentioned on the broadcast a bit earlier that Evans is due for some target regression this season. So last year he had 2,500 air yards that his offense committed to him, and that blew away by almost 500 yards the next closest, let's say, air yard competitor. So if Evans falls back, let's say he falls back to the pack, somewhere in the 1,900 to 200 or 2,000 air yard range, then I think that certainly hurts his value. And we saw with Evans last year when Tampa Bay had the lead in the second half of the season that they kind of took the air out of the ball. Now, granted, they've done a lot of things to kind of retool their passing offense this season, obviously with Deshaun Jackson and then drafting O.J. Howard. But I think that in this format, I'm kind of looking at the high floor, and I think Thomas is going to give me that floor more than Evans and Jordy Nelson. I love Jordy Nelson, but the issue I have with Jordy Nelson is age. So granted, this is a 1-year deal. It's not a dynasty league, but in a 1-year deal, am I hedging on Jordy Nelson being 14 TD guy again? I'm not going to do that. I think that Green Bay's probably going to be a little more balanced on their TD spread this year. So that's kind of why I faded him a little bit at the 9th pick. And it's kind of, for me, it was just kind of, let's try this and see what happens if I take Thomas here and see what the rest of my board looks like. And so far, I'm relatively happy with it. I'm not super pleased with my running backs right now, but I'm gonna do some retooling later and see if I can clean that up a little bit. A couple guys went a little bit earlier than I had anticipated, and so I was just kind of, I wouldn't say scrambling, but just kind of looking for another way to make this work right now.
Josh, a final question before we let you go.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
After your question.
So, no, okay. You do yours. You'll be the penultimate question, and then I will have the final question. Go ahead, Dave, with your question.
Well, if this was the third to last, it would be the antepenultimate.
Antepenultimate,
and
yeah.
Fourth, pretty antepenultimate.
Yes, anyway.
So you have 53,400 tweets that you have posted in your Twitter career. Bulky by comparison is 7,300. I have 1,761 tweets. That is super impressive. I mean, how can you put out that many tweets? Tell me about your tweets.
God, is it that many? That's insane.
That's a lot.
That's
of
incredible.
tweets.
I got to log off of Twitter. That's all I got to say. No, honestly.
And what people don't realize about Josh's Twitter, and Josh, I'll let you answer this question. Josh just joined Twitter last week, and he's already put out 50,000 tweets. It's
that one of your jokes?
No, it's not a joke. Jokes? Like, that's a real thing. Join Twitter, July 2017. No, go ahead and talk about anybody who's following you on Twitter, all the goodness that they're going to find from you.
There's a lot of good stuff here.
I'll tell you what, those bots out of India, they do work. They really do work.
Well, let me just actually bring this up to go along with the Twitter, and I shouldn't do this. Alex will probably get mad at me. Alex, my partner. But you have the fantasyadhd.com/MFL10_live. It's a really cool feature. I see you do it on Twitter. You should really do it for us. We probably would pay you more than Mike Hall at NFL.
All right, let's not.
But, it's a cool feature. Tell us a little bit about that because it's really neat.
Yeah, so it's really just geared toward best ball drafts, and I would love to integrate FFPC in there, and if I could get in touch with someone from FFPC and get a little API access, then I can certainly integrate FFPC into it immediately because all the structure's built. I just need to get my hands on the data, and I can get my hands on the data in about 15 minutes if I've got the right info. Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
The wheels are in motion there already. We're
going to give you another 10,000 tweets to send out.
Yeah, exactly. Just tomorrow. Just alone. Hey, Josh.
Excellent.
Okay, this will be the final question. The final question before we let you go. I'm curious. You tweeted out earlier today. That this was your first FFPC draft ever. We are, deep into the ninth round of it. How has it been going so far? Has there been any surprises? What's been the most striking thing for you thus far in this draft?
It's not really, there's nothing that really strikes me odd in this draft. I mean, knowing it was tight end premium, I kind of came in expecting tight ends to start going earlier. I am a bit surprised at quarterbacks slipping a bit. I'll say that, but that's obviously because they've been, I would say, substituted with tight ends earlier in the draft. So I was very surprised that Breeze was waiting for me there in the 7th. I felt like that was a good place to take him compared to what the scoring system is for MFL 10s that I'm used to. There's a couple of guys that I was looking at hoping to fall to 7 that ended up, they're in the 9th round, and that being Russell Wilson. So Thorman got the guy I was originally intending to get until Breeze fell to me where I could take him. So so far as a comparison with MFL 10s and then also with the draft app that I've gotten used to using over the past month and a half since I joined Roto-Grinders, the tight end push that we get in these leagues, it would be striking for anyone that would come from one of those situations with either MFL 10 or with draft. So that would be something for someone new to this format for FFPC to really, they need to acclimate themselves before they just go put some money into this format. For me, I've played in enough tight end premium leagues in the past that there's really nothing striking here except that I haven't drafted with any of these folks before. So I'm trying to do some on-the-fly calculation and measurement and get an idea of who I need to take when and who I can let slip to me maybe 6 or 7 picks later.
I love it. And listen, you already won the draft when you took Martavis Bryant, so congratulations on your 2018 FFPC main event team. Josh, listen, this was a treat talking to you. I'm so glad we got a chance to chat on the air during your draft. I will let you get back to it, my friend. Good luck the rest of the way.
All right, fellas. Appreciate the time. Thanks for letting me call in.
Thanks.
That is Josh Hornsby at Fantasy ADHD on Twitter. We will be in touch. Well, it'll be cool to get that thing going for FFPC.
Yeah, I already emailed
FFPC Live.
I emailed Alex already just because I wanted to make sure we remembered it. But yeah, it is.
Oh, good. So I can cross off my note to.
Yeah, don't worry about
good.
it.
All right.
Don't worry, Alex will annoy me about it tomorrow. It'll be good.
It's like, who's this guy that?
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I sent him the link. It's really cool. I've always liked it actually. It's kind of fun seeing on Twitter like the stuff moving around.
Motion. Yeah, I like that too. It's very awesome.
When you're not, kind of like people who get high and watch lava lamps. Like. You're not
lava lamp.
You're not that smart, like kind of a dumb person. See, then you just watch like tweets and you see things moving around and you get excited.
I totally forgot lava lamps existed there for a second until you brought them back up. So we left off with, I believe, Brandon Marshall at the end of the 12th. We can talk about the 8th round now that it's complete. Kobe Fleener is the first tight end off the board to Sean Z. That's Sean Strakowski. They're taking him at the 8:01. Theo Riddick is the number 3 running back taken by Jason Moore, followed by Matt Ryan, who is the 5th quarterback off the board tonight. You heard Josh Hornsby take Adrian Peterson there in the 8th to sack him with Mark Ingram. Say what you will about Ingram and Peterson. I like getting both those guys in this format.
Well, I will.
Oh, you don't like it?
I'm just kidding. I don't like Peterson that much. So.
Yeah, but to pair him with Ingram in this format, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You just don't like Peterson's age.
I think, I look at some of the other players that were taken. That's probably the way I would have gone. But hey, everyone has to draft their own team. That's
right.
Fine.
Getting their guys, Dave, which
Absolutely.
is what we always appreciate on this show. Frank Gore right after Adrian Peterson. Boy, that actually happened in drafts like 5 years ago, except for that was taking place in like the first round. So now it happens here in the 8th round. John Brown is the 4th receiver taken by Chris Liss here in the mid-8th, followed by Doug Martin. Marcus Mariota to Josh Moore as his number 1 quarterback in the 8th. Samaje Perine going to Dan Williamson, who now has a stable of running backs, and Perine is his 5th. Jeremy Maclin. This is interesting with Maclin. We talk about him rising up draft boards, Dave. Sunday night in this format, he goes in the 4th round. Last night in this format, 6th round. Tonight, 8th round. So apparently when we do this show on Sunday, he'll be going in the 10th round if the pattern holds. So Jeremy Maclin goes...
Another great value for Zach.
Yeah, J.J. Zacharyson gets Maclin as his number 5 receiver, followed by Terrence West to Barry Griffiths, and Deshaun Jackson completing the 8th round here to Pat Thorman as his wide receiver 4. We can probably safely talk about the Baltimore running back situation. Kenneth Dixon came out earlier today that the Ravens expect him to miss the entire season.
What?
After he had meniscus surgery. And
is that a Roto World?
It is on.
Brief?
Actually, you know where I originally heard it from?
Roto World Spot?
I got it from Fantasy Pros, and then I got it from Football Guys. But I may not be signed up for like instant updates with everybody. But that's how I saw it. So Fantasy Pros, kudos to you of
first out
getting that aggregate churned out before anybody else. So you have Kenneth Dixon out for the year, Terrence West, Danny Woodhead, the two running backs left standing. You would think that Buck Allen maybe makes the team now.
And they said they're bringing in Bobby Rainey.
Yeah, Bobby Rainey was signed by them today
off
as well.
the street.
Yeah. There's a rumor that Carlos Hyde may be traded there. Now we don't see trades too often in the NFL, but he is his.
Yesterday they were talking about cutting him. They're like, whoa, hang on. Somebody who's similar to Hyde just got hurt. Now we'll trade him to you for a 7th-round pick. Evan
Silva tweeted out that Greg Roman, who is actually on the Ravens coaching staff, was part of the Niners coaching staff that drafted Hyde, for whatever that's worth. So, I mean, there might be something there. We'll have to see. But as you look at the Ravens running back situation, Dave, for you, how does this change Terrence West in your eyes? How does this change Danny Woodhead in your eyes now that you know that Dixon will not, for all intents and purposes, not be suiting up for the Ravens in 2017?
It doesn't make a huge change for me because they don't play the same exact role. But I do feel good about Woodhead overall. I mean, Woodhead is going to get, feel a little bit better because he's going to get a lot of action. So slightly better.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, Danny.
Bulky, I can only talk for 12 seconds.
No, that's fine.
That's my limit.
Totally understand. Does it? And it doesn't change anybody else, like the receivers, the tight ends. It just only nominally affects or marginally affects West and Woodhead. Russell Wilson leading things off in the 9th round here as the first quarterback taken by Pat Foreman, followed by Jameis Winston to Barry Griffiths. Then a couple of tight ends go off the board. Jason Witten to J.J. Zachariason, followed by Cameron Brate, the number 1 tight end drafted by the overhyped sleeper Dan Williamson. Tyrell Williams climbing and clawing his way up into the 9th round tonight. He goes at the 9:05 to Josh Moore as his number 3 receiver. Cam Meredith goes to FFPC Joe Trevor Ross tonight at the 9:06. That is Ross's 5th receiver drafted. And then a couple of pass-catching running backs right after that. Chris List takes Duke Johnson from Cleveland, and Ryan Santos takes C.J. Prosise from Seattle. Kenny Britt and Corey Davis are the next 2 picks off the board. Britt to Fantasy ADHD, and then Corey Davis going to John Rozek. Davis is Rozek's 3rd receiver. That'll be interesting to see what he does at receiver over the next 5 to 6 rounds. The fill in the blanks there, as he only had 1 receiver through 6 rounds, and that was Mike Evans in the first, loaded up on running backs and tight ends, and now he is adding those receivers here. And as we complete the 9th round, we look at Charles Clay going to Jason Moore from the Fantasy Footballers at the 9-11 pick. Cousins is the number 1 quarterback drafted by Sean Z, and that Kirk Cousins tonight is the 9th quarterback off the board. So we have 9 quarterbacks off the board through the through 9 rounds. Dave, Tyrell Williams, we were waiting for him. Somebody was tweeting about this today. They're surprised that Tyrell Williams didn't go earlier the last couple of nights. He goes in the 9th round tonight. Single-digit round.
Still a steal.
Still a steal?
Still a steal.
For Tyrell Williams there. Would you have rather had, you look at the 2 receivers that were available to Josh Moore there, Tyrell Williams or Cameron Meredith? Which one would you take? Because I know you like both this year. I
do like both, actually. I probably would lean a little bit toward Williams because I just like his game a lot.
He is going right now in FFPC best ball drafts as far as the ADP goes for the last 2 weeks. He is sitting at the 10:07, so he is clawing his way up. Where do you think he ends up settling then if this is still too late for him? Where does he end up getting drafted in the FFPC? Can he get up to the 6th round?
I don't think he can get up to the 6th round, no. Because, Keenan Allen's going to be up there, and I don't think people have a lot of confidence in his skill set. I think that unless he actually does get IR or pupped or whatever, which is possible, the pup is possible. But I think they're still going to hold out hope. It's the rookie hype.
Right.
So I think he's going to remain pretty much kind of undervalued for a long time. All the way through draft season.
Do you think that he should he be going higher in a best ball format, given that the offense that he plays in with all those talented pass catchers there? Do you think that he's better in this format because he won't know exactly when he is going to go off, or do you view him as more of a consistent receiver having that type of role in Los Angeles this year?
I think I view him as a more consistent receiver. I know that Keenan Allen's going to command a lot of targets, assuming he stays healthy. That is keep in mind, that's still a really big risk. I have not gone to the various sports injury predictor type websites this year. I don't know if they've been updated or not. But if they have, I guarantee you Keenan Allen's still sitting up there in the 70, 80, 90% range. He's definitely not down in the 15 to 20% range like where Anquan Boldin used to be for years and years and years. He's an injury-prone guy. So Tyrell Williams, you're getting kind of it's like buying a stock and getting a free option, you're buying this guy who you think's going to be productive, and then there's the free possibility that Keenan Allen's ACL or his Achilles or whatever implodes like usual.
Liver,
yeah, whatever.
kidney,
and all of a sudden there you go. There's another
pancreas.
7 targets a game. Because Rivers likes to throw to guys like that.
The other pick I want to talk about before we move on and talk about what happened in the 10th round here, a.k.a. the round of the quarterback. You have Charles Clay going to Jason Moore at the 9-11 pick. Now, Charles Clay normally is going at that 12-13 turn. He goes to Jason Moore tonight as the 17th tight end off the board. And it's not like he was panicking there because he already had Kyle Rudolph in the 5th.
Right.
What do you make of this Clay pick here? What was the reasoning, do you think, behind this, why Jason Moore wanted to go ahead and get Clay there? I mean, is there something there that he's actually going to be ascending up ADP over the next couple of weeks?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think he did take him early. Having said that, I do like Charles Clay. I've said this before. I think he's actually a pretty decent player. He had injury issues last year early in the year. I think he's pretty solid, actually. I don't mind that pick, really. I do think it's a tad early. Maybe he could have got him in the 11th, but with FFPC, when you're looking at your tight ends, you just don't know when the runs are going to come. So I don't think that's necessarily that bad of a pick, even though it definitely was early.
I want to remind everybody that we will be covering all 6 of these Pros versus Joe's drafts on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. This is not the only time we get together to do this show. Every Friday at 10/9 Central, Dave and I do this show. You can always catch the replay on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, as well as terrestrial radio stations all over North America in syndication.
Can you name them all?
On-demand streaming, no, I cannot.
K-Rock.
There's too many of them. On-demand streaming available, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, Overcast. So you can definitely check us out there. And guy who drafted last night, Dave, Evan Silva from Roto World.
He listens to us on Spreaker.
Spreaker, yeah, Spreaker. Yeah, we're on Spreaker and Overcast. Evan Silva will be on the show Friday night, so we'll talk to him about his Pros versus Joe's draft.
Evan's drafting the main event.
He is drafting in the main event, and that'll be
unlike
very
other
cool.
Places where they give away stuff all the time. Evan actually, paid for his team. We don't give stuff away here.
Yeah, he paid for it. Do you know if it was a live or an online team?
It's online. I actually looked today.
Damn it.
I know.
Yeah, it would have been cool to have him out.
Maybe we should fly. In Vegas. Make him pay for the team. We can fly him out and show him paint the tile and rod or whatever. Give him a PH room.
We're about to get a phone call
here. He can share a room with you.
Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to the phone lines. Who do we have? Oh yeah, this is Alex Kaganowski. What, you're giving away free flights and hotel rooms? What are you doing?
Evan, do you live near a big city? I mean, is a Southwest service? Is there a hub there? We can make it cheap enough.
I could be wrong, but I think he's fairly close to Chicago.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So,
hey, Evan, we're going to fly you out of Midway.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah, Midway, not O'Hare.
Yes, there's funeral homes and prostitutes. That's where the Midway, right out of there. That's the cheap one.
Let's get to the 10th round. Get away from funeral homes and prostitutes.
Let me tell you though, actually, my wife and I, we were first married.
Yeah.
We honeymooned.
Met at a funeral home.
We honeymooned in Maui. We had no money whatsoever, so we spent this money on our honeymoon. So, we booked the flight, and the internet was barely around. That's how old I am. It was barely around, so we booked this flight on Travelocity or something out of Midway Airport, because the flight to Hawaii was like $1,100 out of Appleton or even out of Milwaukee. So, but out of Midway, it was like $500-600. Some crappy airline.
We live in Northeast Wisconsin for the listeners.
So the flight was at like 6 in the morning. I just married her. It was a couple days later, and we're going to take this flight. So we're driving at like 3:34 in the morning, and I've never driven through there before. But there's like all these gates and everything is like shut down. There's funeral homes, and we saw some prostitutes at like 4:35 in the morning. This is like, hey, honey, I'm really showing you a great time here. Yeah. Let's go to Midway.
Get ready for 60 years
Check out the hookers. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's fly to Maui.
Yeah.
So it was great.
It worked out. So
no hookers in Maui, though. We didn't see any of that.
Was she disappointed?
She was okay with it.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
More conservative than me.
Let's get to the 10th round here. A lot of quarterbacks going off the board here. After Sean Z takes Kirk Cousins at the 9-12, he takes Dak Prescott to follow that up. Matthew Stafford is the first quarterback selected by Jason Moore, followed by Cam Newton to John Rozak. That is his second quarterback. It's been a while since Cam Newton was drafted as a backup, but Rozak gets him as a backup tonight. LeGarrette Blount to Josh Hornsby there from Roto-Grinders at the 10:04. Matt Forte right after that. Andy Dalton, the fourth quarterback selected here in the 10th round, and he is the number 1 quarterback going to Chris Liss from RotoWire. James White, a popular 10th round pick. He goes in the 10th round again tonight to Trevor Ross. Ben Roethlisberger falls to the 10th round as the backup quarterback for Josh Moore to Marcus Mariota. Tyrod Taylor right after that to the overhyped sleeper Dan Williamson. Kareem Hunt goes to J.J. Zachariason as his number 3 running back. And completing the 10th round, Eric Decker, Adam Thielen. Decker to Barry Griffiths, and Adam Thielen as the number 5 receiver selected by PFF's Pat Thorman. A cavalcade of quarterbacks this round, Dave. Which one was your favorite?
Which one was my favorite quarterback?
Which was your favorite quarterback of the 10th round? Tyrod Taylor, Ben Roethlisberger, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Matthew Stafford, or Dak Prescott?
You know, I like Dak for one. I mean, he was the first one taken, though. You know what? I don't mind Cam, actually. You know, it's so funny. Cam is the quarterback that he's like a whipsaw quarterback. You know, like 2 years ago, he was going late, and then people drafted him late, and he was awesome.
Yeah, it's number 1 quarterback.
Number 1 quarterback. So then last year, everybody's drafting him early, and he sucked. So now this year, everybody's drafting him late. You know, and even though they're talking about, changing his game, doing things with McCaffrey and this and that, getting the ball out to Samuel and McCaffrey, he's still going to run the ball. He's still going to do his thing. Yeah. And again, maybe he's undervalued again. Cam Newton, how many seasons has he had where he's not been a top 7 or 8 quarterback? Probably 1, last year.
That's probably pretty, because he had a great rookie season,
1 or 2.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been fantastic his entire career. He has one bad season. I think actually this past season, and then the one before when he was getting drafted a little bit later. So I think he's had 2 seasons where a little bit subpar. Yeah. But even subpar for him,
still pretty damn good.
Well, last year was rough. But I mean, beyond that, because he had some, he had his problems. But I like him.
I saw a blurb today regarding Cam Newton and how he reported at 246 pounds to Panthers training camp. And he's listed at 245, but I guess he has been playing at 260. So this is actually about 15 pounds lighter. What do you make of knowing that he's lost this weight? They bring in McCaffrey and Samuel. What do you think his role is on the offense? I think for fantasy, number 1 for the NFL, I think it changes a little bit. For fantasy, I don't know how much it changes his value. If anything, it makes it go up.
Well, I mean, there are more weapons, so it's like people are concerned that he's going to be just tossing it to McCaffrey. Well, if he tosses it to McCaffrey and runs an 80-yard touchdown, that's still an 80-yard passing touchdown.
He still gets points.
He threw it 4 yards, and McCaffrey ran at 80. He gets all those points. Mm-hmm. I think
same thing with Curtis Samuel.
Exactly. I think the offense is going to be very productive. I think Cam's going to benefit from that.
Greg Olson says he's not holding out. He reported. So the Ducks lining up in Carolina. It's too bad that Cam Newton plays in a division with just these stalwart defenses that just don't allow for shootouts. The Saints defense, just the suffocating Saints defense. The Buccaneers defense that hasn't allowed a first down since the Reagan administration. And, of course, the Atlanta Falcons who put the, whatever. They suck on defense, too. I'm running out of metaphors here.
Put the O in defense.
Anyway, I'm just saying, there's a lot of potential for shootouts in the NFC South. So, Cam Newton in the 10th round. So, good pick by John Rozak there. Jonathan Stewart leads things off in the 11th round to Pat Thorman. He goes at the 11:01. Marvin Jones, right after Barry Griffiths takes Eric Decker. He adds Marvin Jones. Yep. What, do you want to say something about Marvin Jones?
No comment.
Bulky, he sucks. He stinks. He's had one good game. Blah, 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 blah.
I have no comment on Marvin Jones tonight.
I got to start.
I will next week.
I got to start teeing you up more on these trigger picks, like Marvin Jones.
Trigger picks. I like that.
Martellus Bennett.
We should use that more often.
Trigger picks?
Trigger picks.
Derek Carr is the first quarterback taken by J.J. Zachariason.
Let me talk about that real quick.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that myself.
Everybody thought they were going to screw Zachariason. Screw Zachariason. He's got this great team. It looks fantastic. They're just going to take quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. There's going to be nobody left. And who's left? And Derek Carr still left.
The highest paid player in the NFL goes
Highest
in the
paid
11th round.
Absolutely. You know, if he missed on Carr, Rivers is still left. And then Eli's still left. You know what? You can't screw people out of quarterbacks completely because there's too many that are legitimately decent enough.
I was on the Roto Underworld podcast a few weeks back, and is shortly after Derek Carr had signed his richest NFL deal ever.
By the way, that's a lot of eyeliner.
Oh, for Derek Carr, yeah.
Yeah, he's got
to go easy on that. But he does play for the Raiders, so maybe he's just getting in the spirit of the black hole.
By the way, he actually admitted that he wears it,
yeah.
and that we had been making jokes. I've been making jokes about it for the longest time, and then he admits that he wears it.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Anyway,
the first, what is he? The non-gender binary quarterback in the NFL.
I'm not comfortable with labels, so I wouldn't know. So I wanted to say that this is right after Carr had signed this huge deal, and Matt Kelly was, of course, going crazy about this, that what world are we living in where Derek Carr is the highest paid player in the NFL? And I said, what if you were trying to explain the NFL to somebody who doesn't understand how it works? Oh, okay, so these guys play this game and you pay them for it, and depending upon how good you are, you make different salaries. And so they must assume like, oh, okay, so the number one, highest paid player in the NFL is what? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, David Johnson, Julio Jones. Oh, no, it's Derek Carr. Wait, how does that work? Why? So imagine trying to explain that person to explain the person how fantasy works and say that the highest paid player in the NFL didn't get selected in a pros versus Joes format, the best of the best, until the 11th round. It's just crazy.
That's a good point, actually.
It's just weird to think about. And obviously you and I get it. They get it. Everyone else who drafts gets it. It's just if you're trying to explain it to a person who doesn't understand it, it gets pretty wild.
I started thinking a little bit about the eyeliner.
Right.
And he's part of the Raiders.
I don't think you ever stopped thinking about the eyeliner.
He's part of the Raiders, so maybe he's doing like the Johnny Depp Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's what I said. I said he's trying to get into the black hole.
He's really got it. He's really got the motif. You're right.
That's why he gets whole team to follow him.
I guess so. He should do the thing where he like puts it on his cheek and stuff, just like they do in like the movie where it's like a real, just go crazy.
Or like Latimer in the program.
Yeah, a little bit. Go nuts.
So that's Derek Carr, which, kidding aside, I really like that pick at 11:03 to J.J. Zacharyson. Mike Wallace is the 11:04 to Dan Williamson, followed by Jamal Charles to Josh Moore. Austin Hoopa goes to Trevor Ross at the 11:06. Phillip Rivers is the second quarterback selected by RotoWire's Chris Liss behind Andy Dalton. C.J. Fedorowicz right after that, followed by Rashard Matthews to Josh Hornsby. And then you have Kevin White and Corey Coleman. Kevin White to John Rozek. Corey Coleman to Jason Moore from Fantasy Footballers. And then Julius Thomas completing the 11th round. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Redraft, which guy do you like better this year? Kevin White or Corey Coleman?
Coleman.
No question, huh?
For me, no question.
Yeah, okay.
Corey Coleman has only busted 1 year. Kevin White's busted 2.
There's a great article. God, I guess.
When you suck, 2 suckies is worse than 1 sucky.
Right. There's a great article, and I can't remember who wrote it. It might have been somebody at RotoViz, and about Corey Coleman and the potential he has to break out this year. And it actually made, you and I made this wager, Kenny Britt versus Corey Coleman. It made me feel actually pretty bad about that wager because I have Britt and you have Coleman. I check it out. I believe it was on RotoViz.com.
Again, when you kind of look at the coaching staffs, it seems to me like the Bears coaching staff is kind of moving on a little bit from White, realizing he's not quite a bust yet, but he looks like he's going to be a bust. Let's motivate Cameron Meredith. Versus Corey Coleman, they're like, Pryor, see you later. Have a good one.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. Where do you think Pryor ends up next year? Does he stay with Washington?
No, I think he might move on. He's getting,
He's like 28 years old.
Yeah, how much? He's like only like a year younger than like Dez or something. I mean,
oh, really?
Whatever it was, somebody put up like a stat where it was like he's like so old.
And 30 years younger than Kelvin Benjamin.
I don't know what it was, but it was
crazy.
I was just I was amazed at how old he was compared to the player that was named.
The third tight end for Sean Z goes at the 12:01 tonight, and that is Jared Cook, followed by Carson Palmer to Jason Moore. Alvin Kamara goes off the board at John Rozek's pick in the 12th round, and that's one pick before Fantasy ADHD. Josh Hornsby had a chance to take Kamara. I don't know if he would have taken Kamara there, but he would have essentially locked up the Saints' ground game with Ingram, Peterson, and Kamara. But alas, it was not meant to be, so Josh takes Eli Manning there. Quincy Enunwa right after that in the 12th round. Solid value there for Ryan Santos. O.J. Howard is the second tight end taken by Chris Liss here in the mid-12th. Latavius Murray comes off the board much later than he did on Sunday night. Latavius Murray to Trevor Ross. Murray going six full rounds later than where he went on Sunday night. That was a fun draft Sunday night. Dwayne Allen goes the pick after that, followed by Jordan Matthews. And then you have Jacquizz Rodgers to J.J. Zacharyson as his number 4 running back, followed by Carson Wentz and Tyler Lockett to Pat Thorman from PFF. I see you computing and crunching some numbers over here. Do you have some data to share?
Des Bryant
Okay.
and Terrell Pryor, mind blown, are currently the same age.
Were they born on the same day?
No. They're
Who's
both
older?
28.
Oh.
Bryant is older by about 7 months.
Really? Wow.
That's shocking.
That's just crazy.
I mean,
When did he? So he must have been fairly young coming into the league, right?
I think Des was young coming into the
20,
league.
something like
Something
that.
like that, and then Pryor was, overage coming in. He's, playing a different position.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. Have we talked about Tyler Lockett? I know that you originally liked him for Dynasty. I think you've soured on him over the past couple of years.
I didn't really like him all that much. I mean, I liked him as a prospect.
Yeah.
And then when he came out.
I'm not talking about for redraft.
No, I know, for Dynasty, but I didn't like him at all last year, at all.
Right, yeah. Yep.
And I didn't like him for redraft. I didn't really like him that much for Dynasty because I thought he was another, long ball guy, like a Deshaun Jackson, which I don't really care for players like that.
But in this format?
Yeah, I guess in this format it's okay, but
Yeah.
still, I'm not that excited about his 68 targets he's going to get this year for 35 catches.
Yeah, okay. Just trying to think of a wager I could. I'm going to stay away from that for right now. Sam Bradford leads things off here in the 13th round to Pat Thorman. That is his second quarterback. So now Thorman has 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and all the rest are receivers. Then you look at Blake Bortles coming off the board to Barry Griffiths as his number 3 quarterback. And then Joe Flacco is the 3rd quarterback taken in the 13th round. I'll just take the rest of that, Dave. Thank you so much. And David Njoku is the 4th choice of the 13th round. He is the 2nd tight end off the board to overhyped sleeper Dan Williamson. Ted Ginn is the pick after that. Ted Ginn of the New Orleans Saint goes to Josh Moore from 4 for 4. Joe Williams goes to Trevor Ross right after that. Joe Williams is looking like the number 6 running back. So he's got 6 running backs, Trevor Ross does, through 13 rounds for the FFPC Joe there. A couple of quarterbacks go off the board right after that. Ryan Tannehill as the number 3 quarterback chosen by Chris Liss. And then Alex Smith backing up Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback that goes at the 1308 to @FFLinks on Twitter. That's Ryan Santos. We had Ryan Santos on this on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour before, and great stuff from him. Really appreciated him coming on. If you ever follow @FFLinks on Twitter, he's constantly tweeting out his draft boards from the FFPC and from various different draft spots. So he is a great follow on Twitter if you want to actually see how these FFPC drafts go before you jump into one. And remember, the drafts that we have going on for redraft, best balls and classics starting at $35. So it's not all about high stakes. I mean, you can get in on the ground floor, try a few out, and work your way up, as many have done over the years. I think about our FFPC main event champs from a few years ago, Joe and Jason Reither. They won their way into a football guys team. They won that and then moved on and won their way into an FFPC main event team, and that main event team ended up winning it all. And it didn't. It cost them like $35. So it can happen. It has happened. Maybe it'll happen to you. Check it out at myffpc.com. After Alex Smith, Darren Sproles, Evan Silva's number 2 running back last night in the 14th round. Just don't make fun of him. We kind of liked Evan Silva's team.
I do like his team. It's still funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
I can like his team and think
you
it's
almost
funny.
feel like you were laughing at him and not.
Yeah,
I'm
laughing at that pick. Yeah, I'm laughing at it.
So Darren Sproles is the number 5 running back taken by Josh Hornsby tonight in the 13th round. Josh Doxson is the receiver going to John Rozek here. And
Doc Shund, the Hound.
The Hound. Kenny Stills is the second to last receiver taken in the or second to last pick in the 13th round, and then Jeremy Hill completes round 13 as he goes to Sean Z as his number 3 running back. We will get into team analysis probably in about 15 minutes, roughly, maybe 20 minutes on the show, but I do want to point something out here. Look at Sean Z's team here from the 12 spot. He starts off running back, does not take another running back until round 13.
Yep.
And do you view that as a mistake, given the talent that he was able to stack up at receiver, quarterback, and tight end in the meantime?
If I looked at the two players he took at those spots, Jeremy Hill and Robert Kelly, the 13-14 turn there. Those are really nice picks at that spot, actually. Normally I would be like, yeah, that's probably a mistake. But and I don't really necessarily like Jeremy Hill, and I don't really love Robert Kelly necessarily either. But they both have roles on the team. They both are going to score some points. Kelly is technically the starter. I know everyone likes to pee all over him with P. Ryan.
Yep.
P. Ryan hasn't done anything in the NFL yet, and Kelly's still the starter. So, yeah, you know what? I like that he did that. That looks fantastic to me.
If you look at the chat room on blogtalkradio.com/HSFF right now, a couple of comments from Sean Z's team. Wayne Ellis, noted high-stakes players, played in this format before. I don't love all the wide receiver picks, but I like the team construction from Team 12. And Mint Montana, a longtime listener of the show. Team 12 is nice. We'll take Cousins round 9 over Luck round 6. Boy, I would too.
Yeah, that's the thing is, if all these drafts go on, you're like, oh, I can't believe Rodgers is still, I can't believe Luck is still there. And it's like, yeah, then you look at I don't know, Derek Carr in the 11th round. Kirk Cousins at the spot that he got taken at the end of the 9th round. Prescott to start the 10th. I mean, that's nice.
I saw a report today that a beat reporter from the Colts is saying, and I don't know if you saw this, Andrew Luck is expected to miss
the entire
preseason.
Exactly.
Holy
You're welcome.
Cow.
Everyone's welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, alarms are just sounding here. Not only for him, for Hilton, for Moncrief, for Jack Doyle.
Balky, don't worry about it. He's on his little preseason program.
Yeah.
He's doing the little soft toss on the sideline.
The football guys' email that came out tonight, they said that they were concerned now. It's the first time I've seen this.
Hey, welcome to where we're at.
Yes. Well, welcome to where you've been at for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. Off-season surgery is concerning, and especially when the program is, you get delays and these things, or then they pretend that it wasn't a problem. It's like, there could be complications. Who knows? Andrew Luck, what do you think the odds are Andrew Luck doesn't even play this year? Now, this is a really crazy, insane comment, right? But there's probably a 5%, 3% chance that he has complications of whatever it was, and, something happens, there's a bone spur, this or that, they need to redo the surgery.
Right.
There's a chance that, doctors, sometimes people die on the table. This is not something that people have perfected yet. Who knows what's going to happen? You don't really know for sure. There's probably a small chance that he's a total colossal bust this year and doesn't even play. And then there's a chance, probably a 15, 20% chance, that he's just a bust in general because he hasn't had enough off-season practice time. His timing is off. His healing is not complete. So now that's a significant risk you're taking with Luck.
You're Trevor Ross, who drafted Andrew Luck in round 6 tonight. Are you trying to get Scott Tolzien at some point before this draft ends?
No, I would actually. I wouldn't, because he's going to be insanely cheap, 27th, 28th round. No one else is going to probably pick him up. So, yeah, that would be actually a totally astute pick, I think.
Knowing what we know now about Andrew Luck, are you starting to devalue any of his pass catchers at all?
You've asked me this question before.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, well, T.Y. Hilton, I reduced him a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Moncrief you've never liked.
I don't like Moncrief at all. But, there's still, like I said, probably a 70-80% chance that Luck is actually fine, and he has a great season. And Trevor Ross is making that case. He's taking Hilton, he's taking Luck. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. It's just risky. There's some risk to it.
We saw Jack Doyle go before Andrew Luck last night. Didn't happen tonight, although it was close.
The Doyle-Luck stack.
Yeah, the Doyle-Luck stack. So let's get into the 14th round here as we press on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak covering pros versus Joe's number 3. No more half measures draft tonight. We didn't talk about the theme this year. Good theme. Breaking Bad theme. Yeah,
I'm surprised it took so long for Armani, who's a huge Breaking Bad fan.
He's a huge, massive Breaking Bad fan.
To really dial that in.
Maybe it'll be a Breaking Bad theme next year. Dude,
maybe
it'll just be like renamed to the Breaking Bad.
Hey Bryce, what do you think of Breaking Bad?
Don't irritate Bryce right now.
Never watched it. I refuse to watch it.
Bryce does not.
Whatever, Bryce.
He tried watching it. I think he watched the first episode and a half and he couldn't get into it, so he gave up on it.
My wife didn't like it either. She didn't like it, the one where the guy got choked with the bicycle lock. Crazy Eight. Yeah. She kind of likes happy,
Antiques Roadshow.
There's not a lot of redeeming characters really.
Right. Yeah.
On that show on Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to bring up, I don't like how AMC does it. They have these commercials that lead off with it says it's Walter White and he's going, "Wanna cook?" to Jesse, and then it's like Breaking Bad is back, and I'm like, wait, what? And then it's no, they're just re-airing the same episodes, which is too bad.
We have nothing original to show. Let's just get some good ratings.
Hey, listen, why wouldn't you? I mean, I'm sure there's shows on AMC right now that are churning out new content that are not getting the ratings that Breaking Bad reruns are getting. Although you can watch the whole thing on Netflix. So honestly,
if I was AMC, I would create an AMC 2 that just showed only Breaking Bad. It'd be AMC 2 Breaking Bad. That's what I would call it, and I would just consecutively show it.
Too wordy.
Well, whatever. You narrow it down.
BBN, Breaking Bad Network. Have a
presented by AMC.
Jesse Pinkman talk show you could have on there.
Yeah, and once Better Call Saul finishes out, then you can roll that in there too.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 shows. That's a network.
And then you have
2 shows as a network.
And then you have the next Breaking Bad spinoff, whatever that is.
Well, it could be the guy with the restaurants.
Fring?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Just call it Los Pollos Hermanos.
Just call it Los Pollos.
Los Pollos, yeah. Well, that's not the chickens. I'd watch it.
Whatever they want to call it. Yes, and so now you have 3 shows.
Rob Kelly leading off the 14th round as we get back into
fantasy. And then you have the Bodyguard
football.
show too. What's his name?
The Bodyguard. Huel?
No, the other guy. The badass old guy.
Oh, Ehrmantraut. Mike Ehrmantraut. Right. Yeah. Well, he's on Better Call Saul right now too. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I suppose.
Rob Kelly leading off the 14th round. Justin Tucker is the first kicker off the board going to Jason Moore. Evan Engram, the third tight end drafted by John Rozak here in the 14th round. Giovanni Bernard and Jonathan Williams, a pair of running backs, go right after that, followed by Brashad Perriman, smack dab in the 14th round, followed by Antonio Gates to Trevor Ross as his number 2 tight end. Deshaun Watson is the third quarterback for Josh Moore here in the 14th round. Sterling Shepard going off the board, the number 5 receiver for Dan Williamson, and a trio of running backs finish off the round. It's DeAndre Washington to J.J. Zachariason, Thomas Rawls to Barry Griffiths, and Chris Thompson to Pat Thorman. We have not talked much about Chris Thompson, either in the PBJ coverage or on our show this year, but he's interesting, Dave, because he's a better pass catcher than Rob Kelly, he's a better pass catcher than Samaje Perine, and you know that Washington loves to throw the football. He is being undervalued in DEs right now, in my opinion. Now, he did go to Florida State, and I'm a Florida State fan, so take that for what it's worth. But I do like Chris Thompson, especially in this format this year.
Chris Thompson is not a player I really owned a whole lot. I just don't get that excited about him. He's 5'8", 190 pounds. I know he's a pass-catching back. He doesn't really present much upside to me. I'm not that into him. I mean,
he was blocked by Matt Jones for all these years. Now,
last. Yeah, I know it's funny. Last year though, he had 49 catches for 350 yards. He totaled 700 yards. He's not that good. He's not good enough. He's not a good enough third down back for me, which is why he goes late. It's just I'm not gonna be happy with his 7-8 points a game.
But there's going to be some weeks that he has more than that, though.
Yeah, he might have 11 points.
Okay, so you view him as more of a poor man's Frank Gore at this point.
No, he's like a destitute man's Danny Woodhead.
Because of the pass catching aspect.
Yeah, he's a pass catcher, but I mean he's not that he's terrible at it.
A destitute man, Danny Woodhead. I like it.
Just not that exciting. Sorry.
Darren McFadden leading off the 15th round to Pat Thorman. So he goes Thompson, McFadden, back-to-back running backs, and those make up his number 4 and number 5 running backs. My boy, Robert Woods, going at the 15:02. I feel like I single-handedly drove up his ADP from the 16th round to the 15th round tonight.
Who is this?
Barry Griffiths took Robert Woods at the 15:02 tonight.
You know what's funny, though, about Chris Thompson? I'm just looking at
go ahead. Yeah.
He actually finished his RB 28 last year. And you know what? That's not a sign that Chris Thompson is good. That's just a sign that running backs are just so bad.
It's tough.
It's so terrible.
Yeah.
He averaged 9.3 points a game.
running back production, it was easier than ever to finish as like a top 15, top 20 guy. And tight end production was down last year. It was a quarterback and receiver league, man.
He had one game. He had an 18-point game, and he had a 16-point game. The rest of it was just all junk.
Yeah.
Junk, I tell you about.
But in those weeks, I mean, he's probably starting for you. You know what I mean?
Yes, 2 weeks. He'll start for you for 2 weeks.
Okay, whatever. You're talking about a 14th-round pick who may have a bigger role this year. We don't know. Now, you're not sinking a whole lot into him. I like him. I think he's undervalued. Disagree with me if you want. Jesse James.
I do. I will, and I have.
Jesse James at the 1503. That is a steal for J.J. Zacharyson there.
Yeah, I won't get into a shootout with you about it.
There's just just collecting all these bandits on his team, and Jesse James leading the way in the 15th.
Zacharyson's only got so many bullets to fire.
Yeah, another great one. He's taking that pick to the bank.
I'll get on that train.
We are on fire. Let's do 3 hours. Let's cover the whole draft tonight. I can't believe how good these jokes are. Eric Swope at the 1504 to Dan Williamson as his number 3 tight end. Tavon Austin right after that to Josh Moore at 4 for 4. The defenses get cracked here in the mid-15th as Trevor Ross takes the Broncos defense as the first one off the board. Marquise Lee going to Chris Liss, followed by Cole Beasley. Will Fuller right after that to Josh ADHD. Chiefs defense going to John Rozek. Jamal Williams taking a bit of a tumble here tonight. I feel like I was talking about this the last 2 nights with Jamal Williams. Maybe I just overvalue him. But he goes at the 15-11 tonight and finishing off the 15th round. Taylor Gabriel goes to Sean Z. I'm just going to look up Jamal Williams here.
Yeah, 25 minutes left before you, just so you know when you're starting to do a little analysis here.
I guess he's going at the 1404. I mean, that's still pretty good value, but I don't know, man. Like, it's just the other thing is too, like, I'm so glad I talked to Matt Kelly about Jamal Williams because he hates Jamal Williams. I'd be in love with him right now if I wouldn't have talked to him about it. You know, and
it's actually good to talk to people with differing opinions.
I totally appreciate that. You know,
just try that in politics once in a while.
Yeah. You know what's funny is, like, I used to, back in the day when I thought when I started playing fantasy football, I played for like 2 or 3 years in the mid-90s, and like any typical idiot kid, I'm like, well, I know it all now. Oh, you want to talk to me about fantasy? Well, clearly I'm just going to get stupider listening to you because I have all the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And even now, like, I talk to certain people and high-stakes players, and I read analyst stuff, and I have to get myself out of the frame of mind to immediately dismiss something when I disagree with it.
Right.
Because so often
you have your set opinion and you're not going to get it changed.
So often when I read this and I'm just like, oh my gosh, how is this guy being paid to do this for a living? Like, oh my gosh, how is this guy ponying up $10,000 of his own money to draft crappy teams with this guy?
Right.
You know, and I've seen it way too often. I'm like, wow, those guys were totally right about this player, and I was massively wrong. And
it gets a confirmation bias, right? Where you like the Golden Tate tweet, for example. Like, I've never really liked Golden Tate. I never really take Golden Tate, and so then I see a tweet about Golden Tate and like how his usage was, because of Ebron and Riddick missing time. And then I'm like, oh, exactly, that's what I think.
Yeah, and I think when there's certain things I read now. And over the last couple of years, I'll read it, I'll hear it, I'll talk to somebody, and they'll say something, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I totally disagree with that. But then I'll be like, okay, well, what if he's right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at it from their point of view, and it really helps you make better choices when you're on the clock, and it helps you make yourself a better fantasy player.
I think you could actually, just not to get too deep here, but I think you could use that a lot in life, actually. Where if you think something really strongly about something, consider for a second doing the exact opposite of what you just thought about doing.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it's actually the right thing to do.
It worked for an entire episode of Seinfeld with George Costanza.
I know that was a joke, but that's not even like fake.
Oh, that was real. Yeah, that was real.
But I mean, in real life, people will think about something like, oh, maybe I should buy this expensive car. Maybe you should sell the one you have right now and just not have a car. Like, that's the exact opposite. Maybe you should just take Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
And it might be cheaper, and it might be smarter, and maybe that's true. It's just weird if you think about things going the exact opposite.
Yeah. Maybe I should have this slice of pizza that I like. Well, maybe you should have the entire pizza.
Maybe I should say this relationship where I'm getting abused all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be the abuser.
maybe I should have a drink of this whiskey. Or maybe I should take that bottle and bash this guy over the head with it.
There you go. This
Be a wild card.
This is great.
Like anger, violence, and
this is a new show we should be doing.
Yeah, I feel like it's cathartic for people to hear this kind of stuff.
Can't be any worse than Dr. Phil.
Let's start with the player analysis here, Davis. We got about 20 minutes left in the show, roughly. Kick it off with Pat Thorman's team. From the number 1 spot, the running backs are David Johnson, Lamar Miller, Jonathan Stewart, Chris Thompson, the aforementioned awesome Chris Thompson, Darren McFadden, Rex Burkhead. The receivers, Des Bryant, Stephon Diggs, Dante Moncrief, Deshaun Jackson, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett. The tight ends, Eric Ebron, Delaney Walker. Quarterbacks are Russell Wilson and Sam Bradford. I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about this team. I think... he knew he was going to be weak at running back, and he pounded Thompson, McFadden in the 14, 15, 16 there.
You mean David Johnson's weak at running back?
Well, I mean, with Lamar Miller and then not taking another one until round 11. I think he realized that, I should probably get some depth here. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this team. I think it's good.
This team is probably not the type of team I would draft because some of the players he took are just not guys I like. I don't really like Lockett, Thielen. Not a big fan of Deshaun Jackson necessarily, or Moncrief for sure. But, he structured it really well, actually. I think he did a good job with Ebron and Walker and then waiting on Russell Wilson. So if the players pan out, if he's correct in his assessment, his team could really be strong, actually.
You're more of a fan of the construction rather than the players.
Yeah, I mean, I like David Johnson. I don't mind Dez at all. And Diggs is not a guy I take a lot, but he's actually not a bad pick there for sure.
Barry Griffiths, FFPC Joe from the 2 spot tonight. Le'Veon Bell, C.J. Anderson, Terrence West, Thomas Rawls are the running backs. The receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, Alshon Jeffrey, Eric Decker, Marvin Jones, Robert Woods. Tight ends are Jordan Reed, Martellus Bennett. And the quarterbacks, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz, Blake Bortles. I like this team as well. I'm a little concerned with not having a third tight end yet, as it's going to be round 18 before he has a chance to grab one.
Picking nits at least.
It is picking nits. Picking at nits, I should say. I like the receivers on this team. Running back depth, a little bit questionable. I mean, obviously you get Bell to head the way, and then you have Anderson, West, and Rawls.
Well, West is now the new starter.
Well, he was the starter beforehand.
Now he's the new starter that's not going to get usurped, whatever the hell the word is.
Usurped.
You, sir, are not usurping me, Kenneth Dixon, because you're out for the year. I actually like this team. I think it's a little bit underrated. Jeffrey as your third wide receiver is solid. He actually, even getting Jordan Reed in the second round, his receivers, you still have Hopkins, Robinson, Jeffrey.
Decker in the 10th.
Decker in the 10th, and you're getting them all at a discount. Even my hate for Marvin Jones does not dissuade me from actually liking the way this team looks.
Robert Woods in the 15th as well. J.J. Zachariason, we said a lot of good things about this team. Let's see how it's shaped up here through 17 rounds. Running backs, Ty Montgomery, Eddie Lacy, Kareem Hunt, Jacquizz Rodgers, DeAndre Washington, Marlon Mack. Receivers, Antonio Brown, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Jeremy Maclin, Devin Funchess. Tight ends, Jack Doyle, Jason Witten, Jesse James. Quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Joe Flacco. So you look at this squad, Dave. I think the receivers will have to come through. I mean, Watkins is obviously going to have to stay healthy. Hill's going to have to pull his weight as the number 1 for Kansas City, and Amari Cooper can't go through his normal December swoon that he's undergone the last couple of years. And then you look at the running backs. Hunt should be viable, I would think, all season as a functional part of Kansas City's running game. I like Montgomery. I think Lacy is a solid gamble in round 6. Jacquizz Rodgers is going to start at least the first 4 games of the season while Martin's out. So, I mean, you cobble the pieces together there. Not a huge fan of the tight ends, but having 3 by the end of round 15, I think makes sense. And I like the Carr pick. I think that was a good value pick. I'd like to see one more quarterback, but by and large, I think this is another contender.
Zachariason's got one of the teams that I like the best in this draft. I mean, by doing a kind of a semi-upside-down team, Brown, Cooper, Watkins, then getting Tyreek Hill, I thought that was a value. Maclin, I think, was a nice value. In fact, out of his first, 11 rounds, I can't really fault a single one of his picks based on kind of where he was going with his team. I thought Montgomery was a really sharp pick, and I thought Lacy was a nice pick too. I mean, I really like the way his team is put together. There is some risk to it, obviously, because his running backs are not awesome. But this team has a really a higher than average shot to take first place by dominating in a bunch of other spots.
Could be a potential overall winner too.
It has that possibility because of the explosiveness of the different players he took. So that's why I like it. It's got the downside is a little bit limited, but it's got a ton of upside.
Overhyped sleeper Dan Williamson. Let's look at his squad here, Dave, from the 4-hole. It was LaShawn McCoy, Isaiah Crowell, Danny Woodhead, Amir Abdullah, Samaje Perine at running back. Receivers, Doug Baldwin, Larry Fitzgerald, Mike Wallace, Jordan Matthews, Sterling Shepard, John Ross. Tight ends are Cameron Brate, David Njoku, Eric Swope, Gary Barnage. Quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Tyrod Taylor. Love the running backs on this team. I think the receivers can get it done as well. I like the Wallace-Matthews picks in the 11th and 12th round. Getting 4 tight ends by the end of round 17, even though one of them is a free agent right now, to still get Swope, a darling in fantasy drafts right now. David Njoku, and then Cameron Brate, who is ostensibly the starter in Tampa. Dan Williamson knew how this draft would play out. I think he did a pretty good job assembling a solid DE team.
What I wish he had done instead of taking Brady is actually just taking a tight end, like taking Rudolph, and then punting quarterback a little bit and going a little bit later, getting into the whole fun mess that people are getting into later. He could have taken Russell Wilson in the 8th round. He could have taken Cousins in the 9th round or whatever. Any of those types of players. And I think Brady's nice, but I mean he's probably like 30 to 40 points nicer than those other guys, and maybe not that. When you combine 2 other solid quarterbacks, the Brady advantage really isn't there, and then you lose out on tight end a little bit. So that's where I would have changed it. But otherwise, I like the rest of the team quite a bit. I like the running backs he took. I like the receivers he took. Could probably use a few more of the receivers, and that would have, again, probably been changed a little bit if he had switched up the quarterback tight end thing.
Josh Moore from 4for4.com made some interesting picks tonight. How did it help his team? Let's find out. Ezekiel Elliott, Spencer Ware, Tevin Coleman, Derrick Henry, Jamal Charles at running back. Receivers are Michael Crabtree, Pierre Garcon, Tyrell Williams, Ted Ginn, Tavon Austin. Tight ends Greg Olsen and Dwayne Allen. And then quarterbacks Marcus Mariota, Ben Roethlisberger. Depth is a concern for me on this team. Basically everywhere but quarterback. I'm a little worried about Dwayne Allen being his second tight end. I'm a little worried about Tyrell Williams. Well, not so much Tyrell Williams being your number 3 receiver, but Ted Ginn being your number 4 and Tavon Austin being your 5. And then I thought the Ware pick was questionable. You get Tevin Coleman in the 5th. That's again paying a premium for what I think Coleman does this year. Derrick Henry will pay off big if he gets significant usage in Tennessee in the 7th round. But Jamal Charles in the 11th round, it's a question if he even makes the team or not. I'm not in love with Josh Moore's team. I'll say that.
Well, I think because he had maybe 3 reaches, it just really doesn't look quite as strong because he could have waited a little bit and gotten those guys. I actually like the Derrick Henry pick. I like the Tyrell Williams pick, as I kind of said before. And even Jamal Charles, it's like, why not? Who gives a crap? Take a shot.
It is a double-digit round, so you can't rip on.
Exactly. I think his team actually could end up being okay, but because he didn't pick up much value, instead he overpaid a little bit. I think that's why we're having problems with it.
Yeah, if Greg Olsen goes down this year, he's going to have some problems at tight end. Which, I guess you could probably say that for anybody's second-round pick. Yeah. Right. Okay, so let's move on and talk about Trevor Ross's team. The running backs are Leonard Fournette, Carlos Hyde, Doug Martin, James White, Latavius Murray, Joe Williams. Receivers are Odell Beckham, T.Y. Hilton, Julian Edelman, Devontae Parker, Cameron Meredith. Tight ends are Austin Hooper, Antonio Gates, and quarterbacks Andrew Luck and Brian Hoyer thus far. So this is a team that I think the running backs I like quite a bit. The receivers are
Hyde with Joe Williams.
Yeah, which is a good job there. Locking up the starting running back for San Francisco and the starting running back for Baltimore. Congratulations. Good job there. But the receivers, I guess the receivers problem, the issue I take there, I'm not a big Hilton guy. I'm not a big Edelman guy. I'm not a big Parker guy. These guys could all be great. But that's my problem there. As far as team construction goes, I would have liked to see another tight end besides Hooper, and that's not named Antonio Gates through 14 rounds. And then getting Brian Hoyer as your backup to Luck. I guess if Luck is healthy, that's okay, but there's some risk here.
I actually like his receivers. I think they're fine. I think his running backs are actually really solid for waiting that long. But, yeah, tight end, he's really got a problem. Austin Hooper, just some, sack of a tight end. You just don't know how good he's going to be.
I like him quite a bit.
Yes, we know that you like him quite a bit. But, what are his odds of breaking out this year? 50%? That's probably
99.9.
50% at best. So, there's not going to be – he's got to do it. And then your team is riding on some dudes whose name is Austin Hooper.
But he has a 99.9% chance of breaking it. I got
5 on that.
I like it, Trevor Ross. Chris List from RotoWire, let's look at his squad. Jordan Howard, Dalvin Cook, Paul Perkins, Duke Johnson at running back. Receivers, Julio Jones, Brandon Cooks, Terrell Pryor, John Brown, Brashad Perriman, Marquise Lee at receiver. Tight ends are Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard, along with Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Andy Dalton, Phillip Rivers, and Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I have a problem poking holes in this team, too. There's a lot of players that I like here. I like the running backs. I think the receivers are solid. If I had to, put one aspect into question, I would have liked to see at least one running back go off the board to Chris List between rounds 10 and 18, which we haven't seen go. But he does have 4 guys there at the top. Jordan Howard, who's the centerpiece of his team. Dalvin Cook, who should be the main running back in Minnesota. Paul Perkins, who we think is the main running back in New York. And Duke Johnson, who might be the slot receiver for Cleveland.
I look at this team, and I look at J.J. Zacharyason's team, and I realize why I like both these teams. It's because they both are kind of receiver-heavy teams that didn't ignore running back, then popped off a tight end in the middle rounds, waited on quarterback, and then they were peppering in running backs and receivers the whole way through. I like this team quite a bit. It's really nice. I love the Brandon Cooks, Julio. I don't see a lot of bad picks on this team. John Brown, nice value there. Perkins, Duke Johnson, those are pass-catching backs. I think that's great. And even like Marquise Lee, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Brashad Perriman, in those spots, those are all really solid picks. Chris, good job. This is a really good draft.
Ryan Santos, let's move on and talk about his squad at FF Links on Twitter. Todd Gurley, Bilal Powell, Frank Gore, CJ Procise, Matt Forte, Jonathan Williams at running back. Receivers are A.J. Green, Jarvis Landry, Emmanuel Sanders, Quincy Enunwa, Cole Beasley. Tight ends, Travis Kelce, C.J. Fedorowicz, and the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Alex Smith. Quarterbacks, I think, are fine, Dave. Running backs are decent enough.
You got a lot of them.
No complaint there. I think, hitting them between 7 and 10, around 7 and 10, that really helped. You already have a pretty strong core of receivers with Green, Landry, and Sanders, and Enunwa, your number 4, is pretty underrated. I'm not a huge fan of Fedorowicz, but I like Travis Kelce at the top. Would have liked to see one more tight end on this team, but a contender here for Ryan Santos.
See, the way Ryan drafted this team is a way I would never draft my team, but I think he did about as good of a job as you can do doing it this direction. By taking Kelce really early and Rodgers really early, you get these elite players. We talked about this before. It does leave you weak at wide receiver. It leaves you a little bit weak at running back depth. But Gore, Gore is your running back 3, and Forte is your running back 5. That's solid. We'll see what happens. And I thought the Enunwa pick, again, 12th round, nice.
Yeah, definitely nice. Let's move on and talk about Josh Hornsby's team here at Fantasy ADHD. He gets Jay Ajayi, Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson, LeGarrette Blount, Darren Sproles, Giovanni Bernard as his running backs. His receivers are Michael Thomas, Martavis Bryant, Kenny Britt, Rashard Matthews, Will Fuller, Malcolm Mitchell. Tight ends, Jimmy Graham, Tyler Eifert, and quarterbacks, Drew Brees and Eli Manning. So this squad right here, I would have liked to see a third tight end, or third quarterback. I feel like I say this all the time when a team only has...
With Brees and Eli, you're okay.
You're probably okay there. Even with Brees. The running backs are very good. I like pairing Ingram with Peterson, Blount with Sproles. That makes a lot of sense there. And then, I like Martavis Bryant, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt at receiver, especially given that Kenny Britt is his number 3, who I also like this year. So you get Britt, Bryant, Michael Thomas is your number 1, Rashard Matthews in there as well, and then Will Fuller, a big play guy, Malcolm Mitchell, a big play guy as well, filling in the cracks at receiver. I probably wouldn't have done the dual tight end that he did with Graham and Eifert, but it could pay dividends. So this is another, again, I feel like this is a very well-balanced draft. Nobody was super dominant. Nobody with some super bad teams. So there's a lot of very good ones tonight, and Josh Hornsby has one of them.
Yeah, see, I disagree with you on your assertion that Bryant's good. I don't like Kenny Britt either. And Eifert, there's a lot of injury risk there. So I think that's where I have problems with this particular squad. No offense, Josh. Rashard Matthews, I think that's actually a pretty solid pick. I think he might be productive. And I did like how you did pair Ingram and Peterson and Blount and Sproles. I think that was really good. But then what it does is you're spending 4 picks on 2 running games. So you have Ajayi and then those 2 other running games. So that's 3 running games, and you spent a total of, 5 picks on them. I think that's what limits you at wide receiver by doing it that way.
Moving on, I'm going to have to borrow your board here for a second, Dave, here, and talk about John Rozek's squad. The running backs, Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, Marshawn Lynch, Alvin Kamara, TJ Yeldon. The receivers, Mike Evans, Randall Cobb, Corey Davis, Kevin White, Josh Doxson at receiver. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Zach Ertz. Quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton. I think if you look at John's wide receivers here, it is clear he is in it to win it because he has a lot of high ceiling, low floor guys at receiver with rookie Corey Davis, Kevin White, who is essentially still a rookie, Josh Doxson, who's essentially still a rookie.
Third-year rookie.
And then you look at Randall Cobb as his number 2. I mean, I would have liked to see some more receivers here, but when you take 3 running backs early and 2 tight ends early, it kind of handcuffs you a little bit. And I think that's where this team has to come through for Rozek is the receivers.
Well, Rozek, he's used to drafting these national contests, and you see this by the way he's willing to take risks, and he doesn't care. He takes Gronk early, that's great. He takes 2 rookies, that's risky. And he takes Lynch, he's super old, he's got back problems, that's risky. Takes underperforming Randall Cobb, Corey Davis, who's a rookie, Kevin. There's all sorts of risk all over the place. But if any of those things, if they hit, he's going to be in really good shape.
Yeah.
I particularly, no offense to John Rozek, I don't really like your team. I don't really like the wide receivers other than Evans. I don't think you're going to do all that great. But then, it's weird because Rozek always ends up doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So, I don't like your team. I'll tell him that to his face. If we do that, we draft in Kentucky, I'll tell him I don't like his team. And a lot of times, honestly, in Kentucky, I really like his team a lot. This one, not quite as fond of it because the receivers are weak.
He is a draft expert's expert, for sure. Let's move on and talk about Jason Moore from Fantasy Footballers. DeMarco Murray, Mike Gillislee, Theo Riddick, Jamal Williams at running back. Receivers, Jordy Nelson, Demaryius Thomas, Keenan Allen, Kelvin Benjamin, Corey Coleman, Kenny Stills, Alan Hearns. Tight ends are Kyle Rudolph, Charles Clay, and quarterbacks are Matthew Stafford, Carson Palmer. I like the receivers, I like the tight ends, I like the quarterbacks. The only thing that I call into question is the depth at running back here on this team. DeMarco Murray, I'm not a huge fan of his. Okay, you want to take him in the second round, fine. Mike Gillislee, I could see a universe where he explodes and has a really good season this year. Theo Riddick should catch a lot of passes. I like him. But then Jamal Williams is your 4. Not crazy about it. But the rest of the team's solid.
I have to actually kind of agree with you there, Balky. I hate to say it.
You don't have to hate to say it. You can just agree with me.
Wide receivers are really solid, though. I thought he did really well.
Keenan Allen's your number 3.
Yeah, and Benjamin, who I traditionally hate, but as your number 4 in the 7th round, that's
Corey Coleman is your
cheap.
5.
That's cheap for Benjamin and super cheap for Coleman.
Yeah.
I thought those are all solid.
And completing things tonight is Sean Strakowski. That's the last time you're going to try to pronounce his name. Thank you.
Figured it out. 2 hours ago.
Yeah, he has Melvin Gordon, Devontae Freeman, Jeremy Hill, Rob Kelly, and Devontae Booker as his running backs. Receivers are Golden Tate, Devontae Adams, Willie Snead, Jameson Crowder, and Brandon Marshall, along with Taylor Gabriel and J.J. Nelson. Tight ends are Kobe Fleener, Julius Thomas, Jared Cook, and quarterbacks, I almost said kickers. Quarterbacks are Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott.
Speaking of kickers, he better get his act together with kickers. He doesn't have any, and there's a bunch of them going off.
Yep,
you want to screw up your whole team here, pal.
It's going to be.
It's going all the way around.
How many kickers do we have off the board now? I'm seeing
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What is that? 14?
19.
You've botched your. Anyway,
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I'm not going to say anything, bud. We could ignore the whole rest of the analysis and realize that your kicker screw-up could cost you the whole draft.
Okay, but if we didn't, let's look at it.
All right. Let's pretend you didn't just screw this up,
Interesting
Sean.
draft because he had 2 running backs followed by 5 receivers and then stacking a bunch of tight ends and quarterbacks. Doesn't take his third running back until round 13. So if Gordon and Freeman are workhorses this year, he'll be fine because I love those receivers. I'm not a huge fan of the tight ends he picked. But the fact that he was one of the few teams with 3 tight ends by the end of round 12, I think helps him out with Fleener, Thomas, and Cook. You got to think that most weeks one of those guys is going to have a pretty good performance.
Yeah, that's a good example of throwing the tight ends up against the wall.
That's a Gerzak move right there. Was what you would do there.
Who even cares what they are?
Right.
Even they're solid enough.
And you're getting them all before round 12.
Yep.
I think that's fine. Cousins and Prescott at quarterbacks, I like that.
Very nice.
Got to make sure a couple of kickers make it back to you, and hopefully a third one.
I think he'll do well to get 2 kickers that actually make the team. At least this time of year, you get some kickers that got drafted, you have some competition, and maybe you get some guys later that actually make the team that you didn't think about.
Right.
As I'm moving the microphone.
Are you moving the microphone?
I'm very, very excited to hear Balky.
When you start botching and throwing the microphone all over the place,
I'm very animated about the kicker issue.
It is time to bring this broadcast to an end.
Nervous about what's going to happen here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our callers tonight: Dan Williamson at Overhyped Sleeper, Josh Hornsby at Fantasy ADHD. As a reminder, we will be back on Friday, 10/9 Central, with our normal program. Evan Silva.
What?
The definitive Evan Silva interview. We
got a week off.
No. Why would you want to get a week off when Evan Silva is going to be doing the show this Friday?
That's fantastic. I'm very excited.
We are only halfway done with these Pros versus Joes drafts. We will return live Sunday with our next live draft coverage at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, Sunday, July 30th, featuring FFPC Joe's Steve Lowinger, Jeff Howell, who was on this show, actually helped co-host a couple of weeks ago, Edgar Macias, Steve Hutcherson, Zach Giroux, who you can catch on the RotoViz High Stakes Rundown along with Shane Gray. They'll be drafting as an FFPC Joe along with Larry Parks, completing the FFPC Joe's lineup on Sunday night. The pros, Jen Ryan from Football Diehards at FF Degenerate. You can follow her on Twitter there. She'll be drafting. Jeff Haverlack from Dynasty League Football. Mike Tagliere from Fantasy Pros. Alex Melio and Austin Lee from Football Guys will once again have their co-ownership draft on Sunday night. Matt Kelly from Player Profiler. That'll be entertaining to see if he does. And then rounding things out for the pros is Sigmund Bloom.
But I always feel like he gets the late draft spot.
Footballguys.com. Yeah, I don't think he always does. But he's drafting 12th. He's drafting 12th, and he'll be
screws him every year.
Rounding out the pros. I don't know if that's screwing him. Maybe he wants to draft there.
Yeah, maybe.
The YouTube feed will be cut off shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but you can check out all the live draft boards at the FFPC and High Stakes Fantasy Football or Facebook and Twitter accounts, as well as the FFPC message boards tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that you're going to see it on Twitter from some of these drafters tonight. I want to remind everybody, if you haven't gotten the chance to do so, get your FFPC main event squared away at myffpc.com. You can still get in and get your early draft slot by after next weekend if you sign up by midnight Pacific time tonight. And reminder, Football Guys Players Championship, Satellites, Best Balls, Classics, Dynasty, Football Guys, all going on at myffpc.com. It is going to be a fun year for fantasy football. Check that out, myffpc.com. Your Wednesday officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Him again, the sound the engine in is like a bird. You see fireworks and Corvette tires skirt the boulevard. I know how you work, I know just who you are. See, use a bitch, your hormones probably switch inside your DNA.
Halfway home, Dave, with Pros vs. Joes. You feeling good?
I feel great, actually. I feel pretty good.
I got more energy as the show went on tonight, and I feel like the listeners had the opposite effect.
Which I feel like hopefully I'm passing it on to you both.
Well, maybe. It was just par for the course tonight. We'll see you Friday with Evan Silva.
We're shooting birdies on Friday.
Exactly.
With free next-day delivery from Staples, you can run your business like a pro. You can guarantee the marketing department that they'll get their supplies tomorrow and guarantee the accounting department that they'll be delivered free. With free next-day delivery, you'll have the ability to move deadlines up and adjust budgets down. Go to Staples.com and get the office essentials you need delivered next day for free. Staples. It's pro time. Orders over $49.99 placed by 5 p.m. Excludes weekends and holidays. Eligible items only.